All right, dear friends, this interview unfortunately was taken down by YouTube not even the next morning after we did it. And thankfully, Dr. Reed's team was able to have a copy. I tried to get it up again. They took it down again, citing medical misinformation. So, in order for me to give it to you, when it gets to that segment, unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut it out, and there'll be a second part to this interview, which will be able to finally complete what should have been given to you from day one. So without further ado, here is Dr. Jonathon Reed of arguably the most important case that proves everything about UFOs, aliens, and beyond. So just listen, enjoy, and watch the amazing footage, video, and other pieces of evidence Dr. Reed has. Welcome back to another very special episode of Dr. J Radio Live. The man with literally disclosure in his hands is here again for all of you to hear the story, hear some details you haven't heard, and your chance to actually ask some very relevant questions. I'm sure by now you've seen the last two interviews, and you've also seen his videos, particularly the three, one that happened right after the incident, one that happened when he got home examining the body, and then the third being the demonstration of the artifact. Now, in just a couple sentences, briefly, for those people who may have missed it, just tell people what exactly happened to you literally almost 3 decades ago last month.
Well, in October 15th of 1996, I had an encounter with a alien creature in the woods when I was walking my dog. And everything led from there to today. This has been ongoing for almost 28 years, nonstop contact, and just so much. I always have to say, if I didn't experience it myself, I probably wouldn't believe it either. But yet the evidence speaks for itself. And we're talking about physical, hard evidence, not hearsay, not just, hey, this happened in a dream. This is physical evidence that has been documented, verified by all kinds of professional people. So
And
it's the real deal.
Some of the people that I've brought this to, and I was trying to explain the level of evidence. I'm telling them it's not just photographic and video evidence, which has been proven by Kodak to be the real thing. We're talking about DNA evidence, polygraphs that were passed,
Right.
actual attempts on your life, and like you said, the piece of technology, the metallurgy, everything, everything in by itself would be more than enough, but you have all of it. That's why when I feel like sometimes I beat this case with the dead horse to people to just try to get them to listen. Just, because sometimes it's hard to get people just to say, hey, look, please take a look at this, and then passively they say, okay, but then they really don't. And it kind of frustrates me because technology or disclosure has been on the doorstep for so many decades. What's it going to take for people to finally do something about it? Because we need them to engage with you.
John, let me first say thank you for giving me this opportunity, for giving your audience the opportunity to ask questions. I'm here to tell whatever I know. It's been a plethora of information that I've received over 28 years. So there's a very complexity to this case. That's first of all what a lot of people don't know. They just think, oh, he ran into an alien. Well, it's not that. It's everything that happened after that. And the evidence is enormous. It's enormous. And it hasn't been just one person that's looked at it. Lots of people who are very reputable researchers have looked at it. This case was examined by Robert O'Dean, by Wendell Stevens, by John Mack, by Art Bell, Dan McAvoy Sr. These are people who headed the research. It was a 2-year program where they literally followed me step by step, walking in my shoes everywhere I went. They saw the continued attacks on me and my team to silence this process, and it's never ending. That's what's amazing. Do I think they want to kill me? No, but they want to stop people from listening and hearing about this case.
I can't even imagine what 28 years of trolling, must have some type of effect where it's at one point, I couldn't even imagine, because the fact that you're still here and able to do this shows that you have a lot of strength and resilience. I probably would have
John,
collapsed.
John, there's also been people who have been killed because they were helping me, because
Yes.
they were supporting me. And I mean 14 people. And every day, there was another one yesterday that we lost yesterday, another one of our teammates. And this isn't an illusion. I mean, death is real. It's a
Mhm.
real fact. And you know as well as anybody that the trauma that goes around people who are hurt and injured and die is enormous. So probably the only reason I've been able to maintain is I have a really good relationship with my creator, spiritually. And also, I believe I'm doing this for a reason, because I could have stopped many, many times. I wanted to, in fact.
Mhm.
And in fact, the first 2 years, I didn't even want to talk about this. I was a complete skeptic to begin with when all this started. And this led me to down the road to where I could not deny this was going on. This was an absolute fact that this was happening in real time to me and all the people around my life. So, like I said, it's an enormous uh, amount of evidence, and people either are so hypnotized thinking, oh, there is no real evidence, that they just won't believe it, or they've been persuaded by all the negative press, the negative propaganda that's on the web about people like me. And I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that has had experiences that are phenomenal. There's a lot of them, but there aren't a lot of them that have the enormity of evidence that this case possesses. And
Now,
just like,
uh,
go ahead.
I was going to say, with regards to disclosure and the fact that you have all of this, one of the things you also have is the continued relationship with Freddy, the being, for those people who missed the last couple, the being that you guys nicknamed Freddy because it looks like a friend or a boss or something like that, right?
Right, right.
Have you
Well,
ever discussed with Freddy, or at least asked him, like, what's it going to take for me to overcome and bring this out there? Or, I mean, do you ever talk disclosure with him at all?
absolutely. I've asked every question upside down and backwards. Some I get direct references, direct correlation to the question I'm asked. Other times it's right over his head. It's as if he doesn't hear it or doesn't understand it. Yet he's phenomenally intelligent. He
Hmm.
has telepathy. He communicates 99% of the time telepathy in my mind, in my language, in my words.
Hmm.
So he's learned through me and I've learned through him. I've created a database of information that he's said and questions that have been asked and answered. I've continued to ask all of the normal questions. Why are you here? What were you doing? What were you attempting to accomplish? Why do you continue to haunt me? To be in my existence? What are you looking for? And a lot of the answers are amazing. They're not what you may assume.
Hmm.
Uh, they want to study us. They want to study me. Have become their pet project, and I'm okay with that because along with them watching me, I get to watch them. I get to communicate with them, and
Hmm.
I get to find out what it is they're interested in me. Where are they going and what are they looking for?
Now, let me ask you. Well, first of all, let me throw a suggestion out there. If you ever put that database into a book, that'd be so phenomenal. A book literally written by an ET, as far as spoken to you, but handwritten by you. And if you just spent a considerable amount of time on shows like this, taking more questions to ask Freddie, and then just publishing a book Q&A from an ET, I think obviously people have an interest, as I'm already seeing in the chat. Now let's talk about Freddy the being himself, as far as other ETs that you've encountered from. Um, I know that most, including him, are at the same time they're like living robots. And specifically with Freddy, he was born in, or created in a test tube, but born on Earth for Earth, right?
Pretty much so. As much as I can determine by questions and answers, he's a biological entity. In
Hmm.
other words, he has blood, he has tissue, he has organs like we do, but he also has some additions. We did a DNA chromosome test on his blood, and we found out that he has 46 chromosomes, exactly like
Hmm.
us humans, except 9 pair of them are different. And the only correlation, the only similarity we could find in any database with 3 universities was the 9 pair are closest related to sea tortoise and dolphin. So he is a combination, he is a mixture of these chromosomes. Now, one thing people need to know, we still don't have the ability to do this, to
Hmm.
mix these chromosomes. We're not smart enough yet. We can barely isolate them, but we can't mix them. We don't know how to do that. So that's out of the question. We didn't make this. This is maybe a 100,000 to 1 million years ahead of us. They are time travelers, the
Hmm.
superiors of this. They have come back not to save humanity, but to monitor us, maybe to make some adjustments within us, within our DNA, to enhance us, to make us smarter. That's what I believe.
That actually, I'm glad you just mentioned that because that always reminds me of what both Bob Lazar and then Dr. Roger Lear, before he passed away, used to say. Bob Lazar said historical times, multiple times, that over that 10,000 years, that particular race that he was told about at S4 had
Right?
made changes to us. I believe at the time was 62 external changes. And then Roger Lear, before he passed away, said that we have undergone our 63rd change. And that was why there was such a massive increase in abductions in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and which continue to this day, and coined the term. If it wasn't him that coined it, he was the first to tell me about it, but Homo nueticus. So that's again, like the two different people have said this. Do you think that we've actually undergone these changes? Because it makes sense, right? It
Yes,
makes sense.
I do. In fact, John, I believe that we've gone under a whole lot more than 65. I
Yes.
mean, we may have gone through hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of adjustments to our DNA.
I would think so, considering how many different species have visited us over the
This
millions,
is a
billions of years.
long process. This whole, if you look at us as the grand experiment, this is the grandest of
Yes.
experiments. And this is the Earth is a petri dish of all kinds of life to see how it evolves, how it survives, how it doesn't, how it interacts with each other, how we change from a extremely warring race to more of a civil race, more intelligent, and at times falling back to being a warring race again, which is sad.
Um, this is a question that someone that isn't able to make it tonight, but he's a contactee that told me to please ask you live in front of everyone. This is Scott Martin. Again, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, someone who's been taken all his life, followed your case. He's fairly young. He's only about
Mm-hmm.
almost 19. And he said, can you please describe what their home planets look like, their structures they live in? Do they have beds, bathrooms? Is there color? Do they have families? What's
Okay,
daily
well,
life on there?
with Freddy himself, he's a worker. He's a
Yes.
soldier, okay, or a worker bee. Some people refer to them as. He has a job to do.
Which is monitoring you, right? Or Earth.
He was a geologist
Mhm.
uh, in his own right. When I came upon him, he was studying the geology of the area, which is in the mountains, a huge granite mountain range in
Mhm.
Washington State. Um, but the whole thing is about study, about education, about waiting for things to change, waiting for us to step up and embrace some ideas that have been brought before humanity, but we've rejected them for one reason or another, either politically or uh, emotionally. We have not been ready to evolve to the point where we can say, hey, we need help, we're willing to work with you, because we haven't even done that yet.
Yeah.
I mean, very few people. Now, there are a few groups, don't get me wrong, there are a few groups across the world who are actually attempting to communicate, much like I am, with a specific race to get a leg up so that we can start communicating. And I believe this is going on all over the world, but in very small pockets. Governments don't want to let this out. They don't want to let out the fact that they, the ETs, the extra dimensional and extraterrestrials, are willing to work with us, humans, not just governments,
I
because governments they don't want to work with any longer.
That would make sense to come directly to us. And actually, because so many contactees are forget much of what happened during the experiences, I've come to the conclusion that it's by design. They're not forgetting it for, to not suffer harm, but they're purposely made to forget so they all could remember at one point to unfold like a mission. What's your take on that statement?
Well, I've asked that question over the years, why can't we remember more? Why can't we be allowed to remember more?
Hmm.
Because we have a very limited capacity as far as being emotionally stable enough to handle a transition like this. This is not only a education in our physical sense of our lives, but this is a mental transformation.
Hmm.
People talk about making the leap in a transcendence kind of situation. Well, this is part of this reality. The question is, are we ready as a species to make this transcendence, this change? And for the most part, it can be very scary. It can be very, it's the unknown. We need more information. We need more ability to teach about the transcendence, even to our children in young parts of life. Also, teach about the fact that the extraterrestrial, extra dimensional presence has been a part of our lives and will be a part of our lives for a very long time. The same way that we have other species around us, and you can reference anything: dogs, cats, frogs, guinea pigs, lions, tigers, bears. We live in an abundance of life on this planet. This planet is truly a jewel for life. Well, we just need to embrace them as one of the neighbors, as one of the co-neighbors that live with us, and that we can all learn from each other. they're
Just like
willing they're willing to teach us, but we have to be willing to openly accept it, not as a weapon but as a tool to better ourselves as a species. That's the problem.
I love hearing when you say neighbor because, of course, from the story you told me when you were in Mexico and one of the people was talking about how they see these all the time, and I think you were the one that asked him, "Well, does he film any of them?" And he goes, "Why would I take pictures of my neighbors?" And so
Right.
beautifully said because they are. There's a great question here from Rockstar. Does Freddy travel in a ship?
um, Freddy is able to transcend dimensions from one dimension to another. When he warps in and out of my space, he's just literally appearing in the room or outside or in my car or in my bathroom. He's just appearing. Uh, and he had a ship in the woods, but we don't know exactly what it was. If it was a toolbox, if it was a doorway, a portal, which some people have said it was a portal giving him access between dimensions, between his home base, whether that be on Earth itself, which it may be a subterranean realm, or it may be a ship, a mother ship, like some people want to call it. We don't know that exactly, but we do know there is the ability to go from one place to another without physically getting into a rocket, that kind of a ship. They have technology that allows them just to transcend dimension, just to warp through time and space
Instantly, literally
instantly.
instantly.
Right.
Uh, did he say that he's able to, with either technology or his mind or whatever it be, or a ship, make those portals, wormholes, as Einstein Rosen bridges, as they're also called, wherever he is, or does he have to use like natural portals on planet Earth? Have you ever asked him that? Like, for instance,
Yes,
Skinwalker Ranch, right?
yes. There's both natural and there's artificial. We'll
Hmm.
call them artificial or technologically built wormholes. Uh, the ship, what I call the obelisk, the black diamond-shaped
Hmm.
uh, ship, is part of their technology. That's definitely part of a technological, um, shall we say, device.
Hmm.
Okay, they also have many other devices, but he can, when Freddy comes in and out of my space, like every 2 or 3 weeks at the longest period of time, he doesn't need anything. Their technology has evolved over the last 25 years to where he doesn't even use a device any longer. They're just allowing him to go from one point to another. He also has the ability to take us or me with him when he goes somewhere else. He can take you, John, to where I'm sitting in a blink of an eye if he wants to, without doing anything, without you wearing a device. They now have that ability. It's incredible.
And
It's
you've actually been taken in front of friends. As a matter of fact, recently, right? Like
Yes,
literally in front of some of your friends, or
it's
your,
over the 25 years, and I use that term instead of 28 because there was a few years I wasn't doing anything. Like I said in the beginning, I tried to disbelieve what had happened to me. I tried to actually assume that I was going crazy and that all this was some kind of an illusion until I finally realized that I couldn't change what was happening. And I started to embrace the fact that this was a reality. This was a new reality and that it was real. Once I realized it was real, then I could start looking at it as an addition to my life, an addition to our lives, to better our existence, to make us more advanced. We've been held back. The only ones that have the reason we've been held back is because of ourselves, our governments, our political, shall we say, ideology has held our evolution back. And they don't understand why. They actually question, why aren't you allowing yourselves to advance? And the reason is because we've all been held back.
you got the
That
cabal, you got those who are holding the technology, and most importantly, those who are holding the truth. And if you don't
right.
have everything and you're always living in fear, how could you advance?
And my in my case, um, I can't stop the fact that this continues to happen to me. Okay, I can't put it on hold and just pretend it doesn't exist because it has continued to exist in front of my friends, around my friends. Freddie showing up in front of other people that have met me. I mean, this has happened time and time and time again, not just 4 or 5, but maybe 50
Hmm.
different times with 50 different people and groups of people. So there are people that know without a doubt that this is going on, besides me, that have reality and proof within themselves that this is going on. Now, let's talk about evidence for a moment, just
Hmm.
to bring people up to date.
Okay.
Way back when, in 1996, I took film photographs of this creature in the woods after I knocked it down, trying to kill it after it killed my dog. I brought the body back home. I took pictures of it there, laying
With
on the floor.
35 millimeter still, 16 millimeter video camera, right?
No,
Oh,
35 millimeter film
ah,
negatives and an 8 millimeter video camera.
okay, got it, got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make it accurate. It's easy to misunderstand, but I did that. I was able to capture him. Well, people say, well, why don't you capture him now when he comes and goes? Well, don't think we haven't tried. We have tried everything. We've tried thermal imaging. We've tried, regular video. We've tried special uh, surveillance video. all kinds of real special equipment, and nothing shows up. The only thing that shows up is a blur across the screen when he comes and goes or walks across the screen. We've got videotape of that. I've been back in the woods where we first encountered him.
Hmm.
I've taken pictures in that same area and found that, gee, in the front of one area, part of the photograph will have a blur in it, like something's there. Okay. And you go right through it, you walk through it, and there's nothing there, but yet in the photograph, there is a definite blur. So something is changing the light, the visualization of light. And that's some evidence. People
Yes, it
don't
is.
realize that is evidence. And how many people are recognizing that? Not
Not
many.
as many. That's what makes me
That's
so
right.
sad. Yeah.
People tend to think that we need, a body and a spaceship, a flying saucer on the White House lawn before anybody's going to believe it. Well, we've actually had almost that,
Yeah,
and people still don't
1952,
believe it.
right? The two
Right,
flyovers. Yeah.
right. And look, I have an abundance of photographs of the ship in the forest above the ground, 3 feet off the ground, just levitating by itself. A huge 12-foot long piece of stone like granite just floating anchored to the air. Incredible, unbelievable, but nevertheless, it was there. I photographed it, I videotaped it, I took a stick underneath it, a big branch to see if there was anything under there. There was a feeling of the branch like it was going through water as it entered underneath the craft. And as it released from being under the craft, it got more free. It was more free. It wasn't as rigid. There was no tension as it was underneath the craft. So the craft was literally producing something, a magnetic field that was more dense than any other area around that. So that more evidence, physical evidence. The videotape that I took of the being in the woods and the craft, the distortion that happens while I was videotaping is evidence there was a huge magnetic field going on at that time. Again, more scientific evidence. And these are little things some people might think, but they're huge when you put them all together. There's
Yeah,
a
each individual one is massive in of itself, but when you put them together statistically, it becomes almost impossible to just disregard. There's another good question here. This is Joseph
please.
Korea. Are there other others like Freddy walking around among us in public? I wanted that. I think there are, but I'd like to hear what you say and what he's told you.
Well, first of all, Freddy is a gray. He's not a
Mhm.
reptilian. He's a gray. And Dr. J has put up pictures through the other interviews to show you
I pulled
what
it up too.
exactly he looks like. But he's a gray. And there are a lot of different kinds of grays, just like there's a lot of different kinds of humans.
Hmm.
Blacks, whites, yellow, red, you know, grays, everything. There's a plethora of the same species, but a little bit different characteristics to them. So that's one fact that a lot of people don't realize is that not all grays look alike. There's a lot of different ones. And besides grays, which is a biological entity, and I call it that because he has flesh and bone and blood and even some nanotechnology in his blood, but yet he's still breathing our atmosphere. So I call him a biologic.
Hmm.
Okay. Besides, there's a picture.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately that's the one what he looked like when I brought him home with a hole in his head. Um, but what I'm trying to explain is there are other entities that are not biological. They are energy. They are pure energy, beings of light, beings. People say they see orbs floating around in their rooms. These are one of two things. It's either the entity itself or it's a, shall we call it a drone? or a monitor that is being an avatar that is being controlled from home base somewhere, either a ship outside somewhere in the air, or underground, or from a ship outside our atmosphere. All of these are very possible and are happening. So, to answer his question, are there others walking around? Absolutely, there are. In fact, in the last 25 years, when Freddy has come and gone in front of me and my friends, he's even brought friends of his to like say, "Oh, this is Dr. Reed," or "Look at the funny human," and
Wow.
and I mean, I honestly believe that I am a curiosity to them as much as they are a curiosity to us. And I've accepted the fact that we are all so different, but if we don't learn from each other, we're never going to, evolve. And I'm
Agreed.
trying my best to learn from them and tell them openly that, hey, I don't have all the answers to all this. I am not the smartest one on the block here. I'm surprised they even have chosen to continue to use me, because I think are a lot more brilliant people out there they could have come across. But nevertheless, it happened, and I'm embracing it, and I'm doing what I can to enlighten other people, to make people aware that this is going on in our lives. This is not an illusion. These are as much aware as people know that there's lions and tigers and bears in the woods. Well, they're here. They're with us. They want to communicate. We're the ones that have to step up and quit being afraid of it and learn to embrace it. And I'm the one who tried to kill it in the first place. So, I can laugh at myself and say, I know what it's like to be scared out of your frickin' mind, and not be able to handle it emotionally and physically. I know that. And I made a lot of mistakes, and I still do. But I've continued my very best to document everything that's gone on. Uh, Dr. J, we do have another book coming out. Unfortunately, I lost my co author, another one of my team who died, unfortunately. So we've had to pick up the pieces slowly. I mean, we'd been working on this other book for 15 years. And it basically transcends 20 years of my life of living with this, of living around it and through it, both the good and the bad of it. And there are both sides of this story. It's so complex, but it's also so compelling when you take the time to understand who's gotten involved, who has proved this case is real, the latitude. And one other factor, if this wasn't real, why would the continual debunking be going on for 20 plus years
And
if
worse
it
so,
wasn't
the
real?
assassination attempts. Why would they even be happening
Right,
unless
right.
there was this truth to it?
Well, and there's also people say, well, why don't they just kill him and be done with it? Well, I made some adjustments to my life because of what's going on. I had to semi set up a quid pro quo scenario so that if I'm dead, a lot of more disastrous things to those who wish I would quit speaking will happen. I'm not proud of this. I'm angry that it drove me to this. I don't like the person that they made me become, but it's the only way that I have survived.
Yeah, because I
Is
think those attempts would have been successful had you not.
Well, I'm a different duck, John, and as you know, you've gotten to know me and my team over the last, you know, 6 months, after we've been really talking directly about all the intricacies of this case. And you know that there's a lot of things I can talk about, but there's also a lot of things I cannot talk about.
Yes.
But I am more than willing to tell what I do know, what I can tell, and that the fact is it's going on. That's the number one thing people need to realize. This
Mhm.
is not an illusion. It's not because I'm a gifted person. It's because I opened myself up to it because I had no other choice. I was thrown into this like being thrown into the deep end of the pool, and it
Hmm.
was either learn to swim or drowned instantly. And there's people who drowned all the time because of governments, because of suppression of information. And we need to get beyond that. We need to formulate ideas together as groups, the way I wish some of these groups really could work.
Hmm.
Like, for instance, MUFON. I wish they were what they advertise to be. But unfortunately, they're very political. Unfortunately, they're in bed with a lot of governments. And even their own agents, even their own field officers have told me, well, we can only do so much. They'll only allow us to do so much. I
Hmm.
mean, I talked to MUFON. I talked to their international group back in 2000, and they really didn't want to talk to me
That's
because
sad.
I couldn't produce my credentials. Well, they were all erased. My credentials of my employment, of my heritage, of my scholastics, my graduating classes, everything. It was erased. Why? Because if you destroy the credibility of the man telling the story then doesn't hold as much weight. Well, that may have been true in the beginning, but over the years, I've gained more strength than ever by continually advancing the evidence, proving the evidence to be true, letting other people in basically review it and go through it and test it and prove that the evidence has a value. In other words, you can't change the facts.
Yeah.
And everything in my case is based on the facts. It's not based on what I call the truth, because truth is subjective. This is based on actual, tangible facts. And you can't change that unless you ignore it. If you ignore it and stick your head in the sand, then I'm sure you can just go on with your life and say, oh, well, I guess it's not true.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it is true. And it's affecting thousands of people all over the world because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who have had contact. And I've talked to many of them. I've been around the world 3 times talking about this case. The only place you really don't hear about this case is in the United States because still there's a cabal over Dr. Reed and Dr. Reed's encounters. And if you go out on the web, it's full of disinformation. It's full of lies and negative propaganda. And John, you know that.
Yes,
You learned that yourself.
I did. Some trolls came out of the woodworks, which was like, okay. And, I know you warned me, and I thought, okay, it's kind of different times. I didn't expect it to be at that level, but I was shocked. I can't say it was unexpected because you warned me and it didn't affect me, but it was something that I had to deal with for a few days. There's a follow up. Rockstar asks,
Yes,
with regards to the meeting with the Pope, was it a private meeting? And what can you
yes.
tell us more about that?
I was invited by actual letter, by a tangible letter, who a beautifully scripted letter that said uh, Pope Francis would love the opportunity to speak with you about your experience. If you were open to that, please come visit.
Hmm.
Make let us know what's going on. I took my team of 5 people. We went to Rome. We went to the Vatican. We stayed 4 nights inside the Vatican in their apartment complex. We spent during those 4 days at least 4 to 5 hours a day with Pope Francis and his team, um, talking about what we're talking about what do they want? In other words, what does the ETs want from humanity? And all the questions you can imagine were asked by Pope Francis to me, and I did my best to answer them all. Not all was accepted fully, But the first question he asked me is probably the most revealing. Is he asked me, what can we humans do for them? How can we help them?
A very selfless question asked.
And you know, a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth about the popes.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need to realize is it's a political position, number one. And
Yes.
number two, he's also a human being. And he's very, very intelligent. I mean, he speaks several languages. He has a great sense of honor, humility, and humor as well. And
Tell that people real quick, since you mentioned the humor, the joke he told you.
which one?
The one about getting you into Catholicism.
Oh, he asked me, you know, what my religion was, my organized religion. And I told him that my parents were both mixed Jews and Protestants. And he says, well, he says, if you want to be Catholic, he says, I got an in, I can get you in, you know. I mean, you know, think about that. That's pretty funny.
Yeah,
The
it
other
is.
the other thing I that happened that's so memorable to me is I have a good sense of humor,
Mm-hmm.
and I use that to help myself be able to survive all of this. Okay. And I said to him, I said, you know, I really appreciate that. I said, but I like the little cookies, the little wafers that you guys have that you give at communion. They're really nice, you know, and it was a joke. Well, as I was leaving the Vatican, as we were leaving, getting into the cars to go to the airport, one of their aides, one of the Pope's aides, came up to me with this beautiful little box, little red box with a beautiful white bow, satin bow on it. And he said, this is for you, Jonathon, from Pope Francis. And I opened it and it was full of those little wafers, those little cookies. I mean,
That's
that's an amazing thing.
It is, and it's definitely a once in a lifetime gift because I guarantee you, other Catholic, priests to bishops probably can't do something like that. There's a comment here, which actually I could turn into a question from Nathan Allen. He says, "I don't know how the government erases people, but they can and do." And when you were speaking to MUFON in 2000, I'm kind of shocked that they treated you as such, knowing that they'd already spoken to Bob Lazar, and both of your lives have been erased. The only difference is you have evidence and he really doesn't.
Well, let me just quickly go through that. Is my life was so destroyed by the negative propaganda that they realized this case has so much merit to it, we
Mm-hmm.
have to literally destroy the one telling the story. So they did. They set out to destroy everything, creating lies, backstories, unbelievable. I mean, I've been called every name in the book, and all of that negative propaganda is still out there. Well, my point in saying this is that that hit home to a lot of people because unfortunately people don't do their own research and they don't do it in depth. They go out, they see a one negative page and they go, oh, if it says that this has been debunked, then it's debunked.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's simply not true. What they did is they plastered one whole page with all this negative lies and BS designed exclusively to turn people off, to make them think the case was debunked. Well, it never was. I mean, if you go back and look at who actually did the research on the case, on proving, not proving the ET part of it, but proving who I was, that I was a medical doctor, that I had a career, that I had gone to 3 different universities and graduated with merit, and that I was working with tenure at a medical hospital. Okay, if you just realize that they had to tear all that apart, tear it down, disprove it so that people could see that first and know and not go any farther. That's why this case is not accepted the way some others are. Okay, press does a lot. If you create the right press package You can debunk, a 747 flying in the air if you want. If you do it enough, if you saturate the airwaves with enough negative press, you can make anybody a non-believer in something. And
I also think it's
unfortunately,
worse
that's the
now because you had just the press to contend with 20 years ago. Now you have the press and people, everyday people who are part of the press by social media.
well, exactly. And that's what it does. It creates a pyramid. You start a fire underneath it, and as it burns up, people get wind of the case, but yet two or three people say, "Oh, well, that's nothing. That was debunked," making themselves out to be like some kind of authority when they don't know what they're talking about.
Hmm.
And uh, again, let me just say, I'm not doing this to make millions of dollars or to be famous. I'm doing this because I think it's important that we get on top of this as an education to all of humanity. If we
Agreed.
don't do this, we're not going to evolve. That's what they've told me. You're not going to transcend unless you welcome what we're all offering you. We're offering you help to not to survive, but help to evolve.
Hmm.
So we
Uh,
need to do that.
there's a couple questions, and then I still want to go back to Scott's question after
Okay.
we get to these current ones.
Yes. Yes.
Um, this one is Joseph follow up. Joseph Korea. Isn't the Vatican and Catholic Church complicit in covering up the extraterrestrial slash interdimensional presence on Earth?
Isn't every political faction that you know of uh, complicit in covering up the truth?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality of it. Um, but I can answer that question. Sure, I knew what I was walking into when I went there, but
Hmm.
I did it for a reason. I did it because I wanted to look in the man's eyes and see if he really was interested in what I had learned and what was going on. And he was generally personally interested, and I think that's a big deal.
We have two from Michael Franks. The first one is more of a request, but I'll ask it anyway before I get to the second one. He says, "Good evening, fellas. Can we watch you engage the interdimensional bracelet and transport behind Dr. J? That would be great. I could play the video, but I'll let you take that."
Well, I mean, first of all, the bracelet, which I call the link artifact,
Hmm.
is a silver bracelet that has some different uh, buttons or facilitation device control issues on it. I had an opportunity to wear it, to use it, to try to see if it would function on camera in a Canadian afternoon talk show. I
Is this what
it
I'm
does
showing right now? Is this it?
Yes, this
Yeah.
is the video. It doesn't always work, so it's kind of a roll of the dice whether it will work. I'm not the one that makes it work. The owners of it are the ones that make it work. All you're doing is asking permission to have them facilitate it. There it is. You can
Yeah.
actually see it. But it's it's I believe it's old technology at this point. This was 27 years ago that I found this laying next to the body in the woods. And I believe my dog knocked it off his arm when my dog grabbed a hold of his wrist, and therefore he couldn't escape. He couldn't warp out, and that's the only reason he was left there. So it was circumstance that I was there, that I was able to club him in the head, that he became unconscious, which is the only reason I could photograph him or videotape him. And those are the truths about that. But in regard to the device, it's both a teleportation device, a communication device, and a warping between uh, dimensions.
Hmm.
So, to I don't know if that answers the question or not, but
Yeah, I think the other direct part of the question that I think you should address is why you can't demonstrate it now. Aside from the fact that you can't turn it on, but let's just say if you had the power to turn it on, why? Let's just tell him why you can't do it this second.
Because they haven't given me permission to do it.
Not just that, because you have it in a trunk.
Oh,
safe.
I
Yeah.
I've located it in a place that is above reproach. In other
And
words, it's in
safe.
a safe
Yeah.
storage area that even I don't know its location. I have to go through a combination of people, phone calls, and those people have to make phone calls before it can be retrieved and brought to me. That's done for a reason, so nobody can steal it. So even if somebody started to beat me to death to try to get that information out of me, I don't know where it is. I have no idea. I mean, it could be 2 blocks from me, it could be 10 miles away. I can get it back, I can retrieve it. Uh, but what people need to know is this is a very sacred device. This is an honor to have this in your presence. Um, it it's truly a miraculous thing. The way it works, the way it feels, the way it's made, what it does, and that I even have the ability to hold it in my hands from time to time. It's a miracle. And it could be used as a weapon without any question. It could be weaponized instantly. And that's what they want. That's what the bad governments want. Even the bad ETs would like to see that happen.
Hmm.
There are other entities that are in and amongst us that are not nice, that want to destroy the credibility we've created with some of the good ETs. So they would love to see something terrible happen. They're even working with some governments.
Somehow that
So
does not surprise me.
and we have proof of that. We have absolute proof that that's going on. But
Uh,
anyway,
there's a couple follow-ups for Nathan.
yes,
I'm going to take one out of the order because it's actually very relevant to the last question.
okay.
How can permission be gotten
Well,
to use it?
because ever since Freddy has reanimated in my garage, both 27 years ago, I believe the communication that's happened between him and I has changed me. And I believe that they probably put something in me that they can monitor, that they can sense, that they can see possibly through my eyes of what's happening around my life and to me. I know that at one time I was being thrown across the lawn by some reptilians, and instantly, within seconds, Freddy was there and literally burned them to the ground, killed them right in front of me. Without that, I could have been killed instantly. And
So
and
almost
I,
like a guardian angel too.
oh, absolutely. I mean, no matter how you look at it, it's miraculous.
Hmm.
Okay, but people say, well, how do they know? Well, I believe that there's something in me now that they monitor, that they have the ability to monitor, and Freddie is that guardian. Um, for good or evil, it's there, and more than once he has intervened, and I thank them for this. This is not something I take lightly.
Hmm.
Um, Back to the link artifact, it's not uh, a remote control or a cell phone. It's
Hmm.
much more spiritual in my mind than that, because you realize that an entire species race has given me permission to interact with them on a high end level. They've given me the ability to communicate and talk and be part of their world.
Hmm.
They not only have allowed me, but they've created this to happen. Now, people say, well, aren't you worried that they're going to, change you and control you and make you see things that aren't really there. No, I'm not. I've lived with this long enough where I can tell you if they wanted me out of the picture, I would have been gone instantly. I saw how strong the little guy, Freddy, is in
Hmm.
the woods. I saw what he was capable of doing, and he could have killed me the second he reanimated in my garage, but he didn't. He chose to be gentle with me. He chose to start communicating with me and allowing me, as stumbling as I was, as inadequate as I was, he allowed me time to get to know him on a level that he had to dumb himself down in order to talk to me
Because he's so fast
because
and
he's
so
so fast.
yeah.
Right, exactly.
Uh,
So let me say one thing, John,
sure.
before we ask the next question. Let me say to your audience, thank you. Thank you for having these questions. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to explain some of this. For me to explain it all would take days and days, and I am going to try to do that with John, with Dr. J, and with other people around the world. I'm not stopping. In fact, I have very little to gain. My gain is by educating other people, by having other people contact me and say, you know, Jonathon, we didn't know that you knew this, that, and we've known this for 30 years. That this is, but we didn't know who to talk to. Well, to me, that's the gain. That's my success.
It looks like you did answer Long Island Bigfoot's question. So, Bigfoot, if you got another one, of course, we'll ask. Back to Rockstar's another one. Does the bracelet change size?
Yes, it does. It opens and closes like a clamp. In fact, it clamps so hard around my wrist, you can't get it off. And for the first second or two, when it penetrates the nerves in your arm, it's extremely painful.
Which I see in the video that we played. You look like you're struggling, and
Well,
when you
it's
come
like
out, you're definitely in pain.
it creates a thrombosis in your chest, like a heart attack. That's what it makes you feel like initially, like you're beginning to have a heart attack.
Hmm.
And after that, it subsides a little bit. It gets really cold, almost frozen feeling, probably to numb some of that pain. And then your sense of reality starts to change. You get tunnel vision, where all you see is this little tiny dot at the end of this dark tunnel, and then all of a sudden it opens back up, and you're somewhere else. You're
Hmm.
standing somewhere else. And people ask me, they say, "Well, how do you know you're physically somewhere else? That it's not just an illusion?" Well, because I had tennis shoes on one day, and there was dirt in the tread on my tennis shoe, and I kind of bumped my two shoes together, and the dirt fell on the floor underneath my tennis shoes. So that's one way I know that it's a reality.
Hmm.
The other way is I tied myself to a chair one time and used it, and the chair went with
Went
me.
with you. That's insane. Again, I'm not surprised at all because from the basic understanding I have of how this works, which is actually rooted in science. I think a lot of people think it's science fiction. It's actually not. This is some of this technology was theorized at least by Albert Einstein, for instance, like the wormholes, so or the you being enveloped when this device goes on, and things in that envelope, like the chair, will come with you. Real
Right.
quick before I get to this question, there was a when you were thanking everyone and talking about wanting to educate us and stuff like that. There was a really great comment that I want to read for you on air. And the first three words are in caps. This is from Nathan Allen. He says, "I believe you." That's in caps, and love when I
Thank
can
you.
see you live online.
Thank you so much. It means the world to me when people interact with me. Um, this is why I've continued to talk all over the world, because people ask me to tell my story.
Hmm.
I sometimes feel like, this has got to be old to people because they've heard this story that hasn't changed in the basic story in 27 years, almost 28 years. But people never get tired of it for a reason I never imagined. And one of the reasons is they've had their own experience and they need to connect with somebody else who didn't have all the answers, who thought he was going nuts at the beginning, like I was. And they just need the camaraderie ship to know that they're not crazy, that this stuff happens. And we all need to join together. We need to learn to work together and accept our own differences as well as the extraterrestrial, extra dimensional differences that they are bringing to the table. Look, we're a fish out of water. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we live in a very, very shallow pond of a universes that are enormous. And if we're going to transcend this reality, and they want us to, they literally ask us to step up and communicate. If we're going to do that, then we got to make the action. We can't just sit back and say, gee, it would be really nice if I saw a flying saucer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't do that. You have to get interactive with it. Now, I want to say this, and I'm sorry that I got to say it this way. You don't have to spend any money to call them, to get them to come by your house. You don't have to pay money like some people tell you to
Five,
go out
25
and sit.
grand. Yeah.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. You need a good pair of binoculars, a nice lawn chair, and maybe a Mai Tai or hot chocolate to drink while you're spending a few hours a week outside. I guarantee you they will come and show themselves to you.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
I
thank you for
can't.
saying that, because this is a really important clip. You just explained in 20 seconds, 30 seconds how you could initiate contact.
Well, you actually have to humble yourself to them. You have to actually put your mind in such a childlike state where you're in awe of it and you're saying, please come, please show me, tell me about yourself. I want to see it. I want to experience you. And if you do that, they come.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, they will come. I started telling somebody who is now a part of my team that you need to go outside and you need to just open yourself up to them, and they will show you. Be patient. Doesn't happen overnight. And I did. That person now can't get rid of them. I mean, every single night she's seeing them. She's taken pictures of them. She's learned that there's like 5 or 6 different races that come by. um, do they Are they listening in on my cell phone or my television? uh, maybe they are. Do they think I'm just a crazy guy? Maybe they do, but nevertheless they come. And I nobody's paying me any money to do
Yeah.
this. You know, when I hear that some researchers out there are charging thousands of dollars to set up a group on a mountaintop, I just know how insane that is, because it
And
doesn't have to be that way.
as you know,
Now,
some of it is tens of thousands.
well, I agree. Let me say something else, and I'm just going to say it. I'll probably get in trouble. Stephen Greer is a very interesting man. He can talk up a storm, and he has gathered a huge amount of information as far as um, military people who have had sightings, naval aviators, airline pilots. He has brought a huge amount of people onto the table of reality that have seen and experienced these things. Very few of them, if any, have any proof. None of them seem to have any photographs. None of them have audio recordings. Like I have thousands of hours of audio recordings with Freddy making all kinds of noises and squeaks and but nevertheless, he's gathered all of this valuable information, and I take my hat off to him. I say, good job. But nevertheless, he won't talk to me. He won't acknowledge that I have some fairly substantial evidence proving the fact that these guys have been around for at least the last 28 years with me. But he doesn't want that because he doesn't want to lose his spotlight. He doesn't want to lose his meal ticket, people get addicted to this fame thing. And you know, I'm as much to I've had that happen early on. I saw what it was, and it almost destroyed me.
Hmm.
Okay. And if it wasn't for my team that pulled me back from the edge and said, "What are you doing, Jonathan? What is this actually about?" Um, I would have been probably up there with people like Stephen Greer. But I learned fast that there, you know, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll wasn't what I wanted,
Yeah.
even though it was good. But it wasn't. But it wasn't what I wanted. So I just wanted to continue to divulge and talk and communicate about what I've learned, because I've learned a great deal. I've learned how they want to talk to us, why they want to talk to us, why they care about the geology of the earth, that the earth is changing and that it may not be here someday. Part of what I want to tell people, and I don't say this very often because I don't want to scare people, but these changes are beyond our control. This baloney that politics talks about regarding climate change,
Oh my
it
God.
has never been about what humans have done. Never. We can't change it. It's cyclical.
Thank
The
you for
whole
saying that.
deal with climate change is cyclical. Like every 26,000 years, the earth rotates closer to the sun. It changes the tides and the storms and everything else. It's science. It's just hard science.
You know,
So for,
on that point, real quick,
yes,
the Rhine River is down at the lowest level that we've seen, and it has ancient German writing from 600, about 600 A.D., saying, if you're reading this, pray, because when the last time it was that low, obviously they were going through a drought. The fact that it has
right,
not been that low for 1400 years shows us what, Dr. Reed? It's cyclical. We
right.
didn't do it back then. We didn't have thermal combustion, internal combustion engines. So all this is a hoax every time I hear it. And I'm glad you said it because it's one of those things that irks me whenever we're putting money
John,
on it.
part of the reason I believe that I've learned that they want to educate us. They want us to step up to the galactic table, the conference table, is because they don't want our species to just die out completely. Okay. That's happened several times before, you
Hmm.
know, where we've almost gone completely extinct, but we've come back. Well, they're doing everything they can to get us off the planet with them, to
Ah,
evolve into another dimension, another transitional space, because we are part of them. They are us in the future. We are
yes.
linked. We are truly family, and uh, not with Freddy, not with the little gray,
But you're
but
talking
with
about the superiors and all of
the
them, right?
superiors who are beings of energy and light and have no physicality anymore, but yet they can enter our dimension to here. People that I know that Freddy has seen, they've seen Freddy, they've seen these interdimensional beings. As just as we stand across the room from each other, they will enter our space. They can't enter our space the way Freddy can because they're not the same physicality as he is. So they created Freddy to be able to interact with us within our world, within our atmosphere, to breathe our air, and to have two legs, two arms, stereoscopic eyes, to be able to run around like we do. We're the most agile creature, you know, and intelligence that there has evolved, not necessarily the best, but agile. And they created this being to be able to work within our environment, to be able to learn about the changes in the world, the geology of the world. Okay. And I'm telling you, eventually, the earth as we know it is not going to be here.
Yeah. And
This
that's
is
scary.
something I've learned, but it's something we need to accept. And we need to move on top of that information. We need to realize that if we allow them to talk to us, to speak to us, and for us to evolve with them, we won't be left behind. We need to take these lessons seriously. Now, I'm going to tell a little story. You recently, through the news, through NASA, never a straight answer.
Yeah.
Um, they've enlightened, cracked the lid on the fact that the asteroids and meteors are coming more frequently
Yes.
past our planet, and they are telling us, like, gee, we need to be aware that someday one might hit us. Well, someday is today. There have been some that have come so close that if there was not an intervening factor, if somebody didn't intervene, it would have hit us. We know now, and this is not fantasy, this is a fact. We know now that the pyramids in Egypt, the Great Pyramid in Egypt, has some channels in it, some tubes
Yeah,
inside, some
that's right.
corridors.
Yeah.
And it's made out of all kinds of different kinds of stone. Well, if you study science, harmonics, and energy, you realize that energy can be squeezed like water out of a hose. You can
Yeah.
compress it. And as you compress it, it becomes more and more powerful, like we do with the laser.
Yeah.
Laser light is extremely powerful, and we've amplified and compressed that light and causing it to do all kinds of amazing things. Well, science now realizes that there's a few scientists that are talking about this, not many, because of course they're all saying they're crazy,
Yeah.
but
Like
there's
they
a few
always do when there's a
scientists,
new idea.
right? A few scientists said not too long ago, and I've known this for years because Freddy kind of drew this out in a graph for me, saying that the pyramids are a nozzle. They are a nozzle. They are like waveguide. And people who know what radar is,
Hmm.
radar has to have a channel to go, that transcendent energy has to be from the big dish that sits on top of the ship that goes back and forth. That energy has to go down inside this tube, inside this channel, be re-amplified and turned into energy so it can be seen on a screen electronically. Well, if you reverse that, if you create the energy out in space, out in another planet, in another dimension, and you shoot it through this waveguide, which is the pyramid, you can, by adjusting the angle from the source of the energy, you can use the energy to deflect asteroids. And there's 3 times in the last 5 years they've noticed that asteroids all of a sudden changed direction, and they couldn't quite understand how that could be. They changed direction, they slowed down, and they were moved miraculously. They were moved from one point of the sky to another, just enough so that they didn't hit the Earth. Well, why would this be? Well, Freddy says way back when, way back when the Earth got bombarded by a huge 6-mile long asteroid, which basically wiped out half of the life on the Earth, the dinosaurs as we know it, that hit in the right off of the tip of Mexico. That was one that almost wiped everything out. Then another one, a few 100,000 years later, that hit in Siberia,
Oh,
wiped
Augusta,
out.
you talking about?
Right, that
Yeah.
wiped out another half of all life. So the ETs got smart and said, we need to create something so that we can deflect these big things, so that we can let life live longer on this planet, so we can, truly let it evolve and have the planet be the wonderful petri dish that it is. So they designed these pyramids all over the earth that could be used at different angles, at different points of reference, all by changing wherever the energy from another dimension or another space is shot, it goes down through the pyramid and back out and forces it away. We know that energy, harmonics, and frequency is energy. We know
Yes.
that both in sound and light and physicality. That's science. Okay, that's all science. We know that that's true. Well, scientists have proven we can deflect things with frequency. I mean, absolutely, it's a proven thing. So all that I'm talking about in regard to why the pyramids exist, we now know. They were built not for us humans to use as sacrificial mounds to throw each other off or to bury us, but they were built to create these deflection devices, these
Hmm.
conduits. And that's why we're not dead. That's why we haven't had an extinction device or event.
Level event. Yeah.
Right. And not too long ago, a huge asteroid came by and they kept saying, well, it's going to be really close. It's going to be really, really close. And all of a sudden, it changed angle by 2 degrees. And
I
that's the only reason it could have done it.
So it's our
So,
essentially defense, and I'm glad you mentioned that about the Egypt, about the pyramids, because I've heard things from like it being a power plant to other things. I've known about the corridors for quite some time, but now it actually makes sense that this was a defense for us from asteroids.
right,
These next
right.
two questions, because
Yes.
they started, uh, two people started talking to each other about it. So let me see if I could sort of merge it. This is quite some time ago, about 30 minutes plus ago, and this is from Nathan
Okay.
Allen again. When
I'm
you were
sorry I
talking about,
talked so long.
no worries, this is, again, people are enjoying it, and you're the one that they want to hear from. So if you pass something, it's no big deal. When you were talking about the fact that they're asking for us to come forward to ask for
Yes.
them, and that we
Yes.
have to change, right? The
Yes.
question is right, we have to evolve, but is it on a social group level or on a personal level? And I believe the follow up with that is social group level seems like it's not going to happen. In relation to this is now Joseph responding. In relation to your question, Nathan, do all people have to have the potential to evolve? And he goes on to say yes. But now, what's your take on that? Is it a social group level or on a personal level we have to evolve?
Well,
And
I think they would like us to evolve totally. They would
mhm,
like us to embrace the fact that we need to do this transcendence. Okay, um, it's spiritual. Okay, it's an internal ability to let go of the bullshit that we've been taught all of our lives that things don't exist. Okay, that's a raw way of saying it, and I'm sorry for my language,
no,
but
no worries. Yeah,
we need to break free of the old baggage and learn new things, and it's not difficult. I completely can attest to the fact that it's not a difficult thing. So they're now going after individuals who are open enough to to accept it in their lives. I
I
think
can't.
I think they would like more people to accept it. I think they would like it to be a spiritual, uh, overwhelming transcendence of our whole species, but that's not going to happen. We've been bred, we've been dumbed down to believe that things can't happen this way,
Yeah,
and we need to learn new new things, new tools in the process of learning this. More people, uh, crazy people like me, need to come forward and tell people that this is a reality, that we can embrace this, that we're not selling our souls to the devil.
mhm,
This is not about demons possession. This is about the evolution of our spirit, of our being, and our being and spirit is connected to the physicality of our lives. Our
mhm.
biology, our biology is simply what grows on the outside of our soul. Okay. And I'm not talking about organized religion. I'm talking about the spirituality, the miraculousness of life itself. Okay. And this is something I had to learn. I'm not a religious person. I've never been into organized religion. I didn't uh, embrace that as a child or an adult. In fact, I didn't have time for it. I didn't have time for any of this. I was an absolute skeptic when it came to this kind of thing. Even the thought of extraterrestrial life, I just didn't have time for it because I was constantly studying and working as a medical doctor, and I just didn't make time for it in my life. Well, I now know that was a mistake. We need to make time to learn about our spirituality in the fact that life is a miracle. This ability to live and breathe, this is an experience. It's a learning experience that we only have in this dimension for a short amount of time. I mean, we have it for, let's just say 80 years and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Now, it comes back around. Okay, it does come back around because they've proven to me that our evolution is part of a circle and it keeps coming back and we keep learning again and again. So, reincarnation, one way or another, is a reality. That is a truth. That's a fact. Part of the process of the beings of light, the beings of energy, part of their job is continuing the process of life, letting life continue, not only on Earth, but on all planets, on all universes. They're like the great caretakers of part of the universe. They're not the only ones, they're one little group, the ones that I deal with. But there's thousands of groups, maybe millions on planets circling every other solar systems that are out there. We're
Yeah.
not alone, but we're alone for a reason. Here's something that people won't tell you. The reason we haven't encountered these other species is because we're scary. We're the ones who are violent. We're the ones who kill each other for pocket money or for no reason or for jealousy. And until we get away from that, until we start building our own sense of value into our lives, into the fact that we're alive, until we do that, they're not going to allow us to go out there and meet a lot of these other races. They're going to prevent it.
I'm so glad you said that because we are a very violent species. If a UFO was to come over not far from where I live, I guarantee you every gang member a few streets down from Langdon, if anyone used to hear Ice Cube, he used to rap about Langdon all the time, which is not far from me. Those gangsters would be out there shooting their guns at the craft. I
Right.
kid you not. If
Right.
not to
And
show off to their other gang members out of just fear. So I could see why they don't want to come interact with us
look,
as often as
Dr.
we should.
Dr. J, I am the best example there is for an idiot who didn't know how to deal with any of this. When it first happened, I was scared to death. I was out of my mind. I thought I was going crazy. I thought, why is this crazy creature paying attention to me? Where I tried to kill it, it killed my dog. Why are people tearing my life apart? I mean, for years, I went through that process of questioning everything,
Mm-hmm.
questioning my own sanity to the point where I almost committed suicide because everything in my world was gone. Everything that I'd worked, for 35 years for was taken away by human beings, preventing me from talking about what I'm talking about today.
That's
And
so sad.
it drove me, it actually fueled my fire to stay alive. And there were other people in my life who continued to support me and say, look, this has a value. There are people that want to hear about this, that want to hear your crazy story, no matter how crazy it is. But there's so much of it, there's so many little factions that it's so compelling. You just can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's a
This is
reality.
truth is stranger than fiction, especially with your case. That's for damn sure.
Well, I keep saying this, and I people are going to get so tired of me saying this, but if this hadn't happened to me, if I hadn't have physically seen the evidence myself in my hand in front of me, I wouldn't believe it either. So I don't blame people for not believing, especially with all the negative propaganda. They did a great job to discredit me. I mean, I've been called everything from a child molester to being gay to being a murderer to being a liar, an ex, you know, just insane stuff. Uh, and I am probably the furthest thing from any of those things that you could ever imagine. Anybody who's spent any time with me has realized that, I'm not just some fool off the street trying to sell a book. I do have a book. There is a book that
And a
talks
second one
about,
hopefully coming soon.
yeah, a second book that'll eventually be out. But what's more important than selling books is the fact that you can touch people's lives.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell people my story. You can choose to believe it or you can choose not to believe it. That's okay with me. It doesn't hurt my feelings because I would be the same way. I would be skeptical. But when you look at the facts of the evidence in order of how it came, if you look at how many people have also seen those facts, studied it, that people literally walked in my shoes behind me for 2 years, seeing whether it was true or not, seeing the places I lived in, seeing where I went to college, professors who had taught me, which, if you read on the internet, never happened. It's all a lie that I never went to any advanced education. Well, I've got so much evidence to the contrary. I mean, I've got the professors who taught me. They've got grade books that, have my name in them from, back pre, pre 1980. I mean, I graduated from San Diego State University, UCLA, and University of Washington, and I went to John Hopkins for a while on a summer program. I mean, there's hundreds of people who knew me, who saw me, who interacted with me, and I've got those testimonies. I have that. We spent all those years putting that together. So if there's anybody out there saying, "Oh, well, this guy's just, giving you a load of crap,"
Yeah.
well,
I've already
it's
faced
a,
some trolls tonight. Scammer
you
was
know,
the word I saw.
well, I say, prove it.
Yeah, the one now that I mentioned it, I might as well call that person out. The name is too far back; I can't find it. But essentially, was saying, "Why would I have that? This picture of the you and the Pope is photoshopped," and then the other person attacked me. Why would I have a scammer, provable scammer on you? And that was my response: is, well, show me the proof that there's evidence that this did not happen.
Right.
Because I
There's people need to understand this negative propaganda, excuse me, um, is so sophisticated that they've got people that have whole podcasts that are set up to do nothing but discredit me. And they've been sitting out there for years doing this, And when you call them out and you say, well, what about this evidence? What about the fact that these other people investigated this case and found these things to be true? They immediately say, oh, well, that's nothing. That's
mhm.
nothing. Well, believe it or not, that's everything.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Because the facts are the facts. You can you can say all day long, hey, I don't believe it, it's not true. You can say that all day long till you're blue in the face, but it doesn't change the facts.
Let me get to some of these other questions. Some are too far back, but I have them paraphrased in my head. But this
And
one,
I'm sorry we haven't
don't
got to.
apologize. People are definitely enjoying this. This is Joseph's another follow-up question from: has interacting with them, meaning not just Freddy, but all the ETs, the superiors, the reptilians, and every ET you've encountered, has interacting with them have a net positive effect in your life?
Overall, I'd say yes. And the reason I'd say yes is because it has lifted my spirit and my understanding that life in the universe is plentiful, is
Mhm.
exists. Um, it also shows me that what we sometimes think as spirits or ghosts aren't really ghosts and aren't really spirits. They're dimensional beings that come in and out of our lives. So there's a lot of little aspects that I've learned from one thing that makes total sense with things that we used to think a certain way. Um, excuse me. Freddy is a biological entity that is a worker. Okay, he has a job to do, and maybe since I tried to kill him and I hurt him and I injured him, maybe he is now put in a position where his only job is to monitor me. Maybe he can't do anything else, and I'm sorry for that. I feel responsible, but I understand it. It was circumstances that happened. What I want to say is the other beings, the superiors of Freddy, are so miraculous
Mhm.
that I can tell you in this room right now that I'm in. I mean, there's three other people that are my team, but there's also two entities that are on the other side of this room that I know are here. Okay.
You could feel
And
the sensation that
I
they're there?
I can feel the energy and I can see one of them kind of flashing in and out,
Mhm.
and the light changes, the density of the light changes. They give me information that sometimes, if I didn't know better, I would think, oh, it's just my subconscious throwing ideas up in the air. Well, if I write this stuff down enough, there's patterns to this. And these patterns turn into grand ideas about getting closer to them, actually allowing myself to open myself up to letting them into my life even more. So they're trying to communicate. There's an active presence. If you let it happen, it will happen. The biggest thing I can say about it is you don't have to be afraid.
Yeah.
You do not have to be afraid. It's natural. It's like I always use the analogy, it's like letting go of the edge of a swimming pool. If you've never been able to swim, you're afraid, you're scared of what's going to happen. You think you're going to die, but chances are you're going to float. And we know that. We're intelligent enough to know that certain things will happen if you are ready, if you're prepared for it. And that's what I'm saying we have to do. We have to prepare for this.
One of the other questions, which actually goes to something me and you were talking about right just before this, someone was asking you if you could dive deeper and to talk about that Freddy, when analyzed, not just him, but I know the suit wasn't analyzed, but you also have some ideas there about him having biological and mechanical features, basically being both nanoparticles and so a bio living robot. And you also had the same experience with the Blink.
Well, we did circumstances brought things into light for me. Early on, way back when in 1996, when all this happened, I thought I had a dead creature laying in my freezer. So I would take it out every couple hours, lay it on the table, look at it, have other people who worked with me, other medical physicians, look at it. I finally took samples of the wound in its head. It had a 3-inch hole in its head with a cranial skin flap that was still attached. So I took an X-Acto knife and I cut little pieces of the tissue, of his brain tissue, of the skin tissue, and the bone itself, and blood, and took all those samples and put them in a freezer out of my control because my house was being torn apart. My friend Gary, his house was being torn apart. Girlfriend's house, her parents, everybody was going through everything. So we had the the foresight to put it in a freezer, send it away to somebody who was unrelated to us so that it would be safe. And that tissue was later retrieved and taken to the head pathologist who I worked with at the University of Washington Medical Center. His name was Roger Haggett,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a truly renowned pathologist. I took it to him and I said, Roger, I need you to do a chromosome study for me because I'd just like to know what this is. And he said, okay, I'll do it, but whatever I find, I'll, going to tell you,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I said, okay, great, no problem. So in those days, chromosome study, DNA studies took about a week. Okay, we didn't have a computerized system then. I mean, this is in 96, 98, and it took physical people to do the testing, the forensic examination of the materials. So it's a process. So there were 4 people actually involved in doing this testing. 4 days later, he called me up, said, "Can you meet me in my office?" I said, "Sure." And so I went, made arrangements to go see him. The first thing he said is, "Where did you get this?" And I said, "Well, it's something that I hadn't told him the story. I didn't tell him at all. I said it was something I found in the woods." And he said, "What I'm going to tell you is I want to write and publish this because it's a new species that has never been cataloged before." And he went down and told me and showed me the paperwork that they'd done, that they'd figured out about this chromosome study, and told me all about the different processes and what they found. But they also found something that he couldn't really relate to, but he
Mm-hmm.
thought it was some kind of technology that was in the blood that was actually nanobites that were put in the blood. And the only thing we knew about that in those days was that we knew we were working on some processes to help human beings by little tiny robots that could go in and destroy cells like cancer cells. That's what we were hoping for. But it
Real
had,
quick, this is
yes,
a theoretical question, just based on your opinion. Do you think that these ended up inside the being or Freddy because he was manufactured that way, or do you think that he was born or raised in or created in a test tube, born here, but somehow drank something that would engage those nanoparticles? Or
no,
have you ever asked him?
yeah, he was created specifically with them because
Gotcha.
it's part of his immune system.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's part of his ability to survive in a foreign, very foreign environment. Remember, he's walking around here breathing our air and our germs without a spacesuit,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
and that's another huge thing I think we should really touch on real quick. Has he ever said that he cannot survive here had he been born at home? Or how would the bacteria, viruses, and other germs here on Earth affect something like Freddy?
Okay, when we create a a rover to go to Mars, we know that there's temperatures and adverse conditions that we have to allow for. We have
Yes.
to use materials that can withstand the cold and the heat and the sand and the erosion process and the sunlight. We have to create those dynamics in the rover to survive. Well, they did the same thing, but they just did it with a biological entity. They grew an entity that could survive in our environment.
Hmm.
If we had that technology, we'd be doing it too. I mean, absolutely. It's the smartest thing you could ever do,
Yeah.
and sorry about that.
No
People
worries.
say, why would anybody use dolphin and sea tortoise?
Because they're the smartest,
Well,
right?
they're very smart. They're
Yeah.
highly intelligent. They have abilities to speak to each other, hundreds of miles away from each other, with sonar echoing and, all kinds of abilities. We don't even know all of their abilities. And sea tortoise are extremely resilient to negative bacteria and virus. They live to be hundreds of years old, So it made perfect sense when you look at it from a scientific basis. If we had the ability to create something, we'd do it the same way. So let me finish one thing, John. Regarding the DNA testing and the chromosome analysis, the guy that I took it to told me he wanted to publish it. He wanted to go back, redo a couple of tests to ensure that what he found was accurate, but he said, I want to publish
I know where this
this.
is going. Yeah, finish it, please.
And 3 days later, somebody walked into his office at the University of Washington Medical Center and killed him, shot him in the head, then turned the gun on themselves and killed themselves. Now, when that happened, his secretary talked to me and said, immediately, men came in the office and seized everything. They seized all his computer equipment, his laptop, and all his paper files that were in his personal office and in the laboratory where they did all this testing. They seized all of this. And then 10 minutes later, the police showed up to do their own investigation.
And when they seized his stuff, obviously one of the things seized was the samples themselves, too.
Well, they seized the rest of the samples, but yet I have all the paperwork that he came up with the testing.
Because you got it before when you went to see him.
Yes. And I have that. I still have that. And people have looked at it. They've said, absolutely, it is a real DNA chromosome test for the day. And it does show extreme fractors that cannot be justified by our technology. We could not have built that entity. We do not have, even today, even 28 years later, we can't build and mix DNA. Okay? People need to really understand that. This happened 28 years ago. The photographs I took were non-digital photographs.
Yeah, I was just going to say, back then,
film
it was
photographs.
so different. No digital photography,
but
no smartphones.
Three of the people who did this DNA were all dead within 2 months. They were all killed. Okay? They were killed. You can look it up. You can go back through the archives, through the local newspapers, and see that he was killed exactly when I said he was. Now, somebody could say, oh, well, you just made that up. You just used that to further your story. Not everything can be, thrown into the mix. It just wasn't like that. I mean, I've got proof that I knew him. I worked in the same building that he did. I knew his family. It's just on and on and on. But again, this is evidence that something was being covered up. I mean, it's hard physical evidence.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get that out.
No, I'm glad. I'm sorry to have stopped you.
No, it's okay.
You got
Don't
to that
apologize.
part that he died, because it's such a big part. You know what I mean? It's one thing that you got the report, but the fact that they went and killed him, and then the person who killed him
and that
shot himself. Then the people came in, the men in black or the suits came in 10 minutes before the cops came. That's such a crucial thing to tell.
Right. It's huge.
This is from Johnny Webb. He's actually live in London. He actually used to be my co-host.
Hi, Johnny.
Here. Yeah. So let's see. He's got a couple here. Does ET expect a massive invasion? Imminent invasion?
No. Okay. There is no invasion, because if they wanted to take us out, they would have done it hundreds, thousands of years ago. Okay. They wouldn't have allowed us to come back as strong as we have. They wouldn't keep changing our DNA to re-educate ourselves, to have the ability to become smarter. They wouldn't have spent the time. Okay. An invasion means to a lot of people that they're going to take over and they're going to colonize.
I'm
Um,
as go ahead.
there's a there's a thought that a lot of people don't like to think about, that maybe we are all currently going through the change, and that they've already colonized and we are them. Okay, we are the new them, and that's very possible.
Hmm.
You
And
know,
then
and we
that could also explain why we're so closely related to them, because we are them.
well, that's right, and I've had proof of that too, from another standpoint.
Mr. Man is new in the chat. Asks, could Freddy assist with the technology?
I don't believe so. He has a specific job to do. Uh, he was trained to do a job. I probably intervened and changed his life path, and now I am his life path. Uh, I do believe the superiors have the ability to change a lot of our um, I don't want to say technology, but a lot of our ability to use the technology in a proper way. I think they have the ability to influence that, but
Hmm.
they also can't save humanity. They can't. I'm sorry to use the term the prime directive, but it's pretty close to being true. They're not supposed to just scoop us up and put us, somewhere safe. Uh, they may have done that with a few of us long ago. There are human beings on other planets.
Hmm.
I know that's a fact. I've been shown that. I can tell you that's an ongoing thing.
Oh, I've always believed the case that Homo sapiens don't probably just exist here, that we've been exported to so many different other planets as well.
That's right, especially when you think about the standpoint that we are related. We are related.
Um, the secret spaceship. Thank you, secret spaceship, for your super chat. And this is what it says with the question in there. It says, "Thanks, Dr. Reed and Dr. J. Again, thank you. Do you believe in an extraterrestrial federation?"
I believe that there is a council of intelligent species that don't they're not the policemen of the universe, but um, they try to move things in a positive way, in a political way,
Hmm.
like we would in politics. Um, they seem to be, uh, by what I've learned over the years, that they're more along the lines of a spiritual force, a directing spiritual force. But they don't control everything. They only control one little aspect of the universe.
Yeah.
And there are multiple universes, and multiple factions. Right now, I was told there are actually 7 main different species that interact on Earth
Hmm.
currently, and that changes from time to time, and that those 7, for the most part, are good. They're honorable. Okay,
Not the ones that are coming here lying to us or working with the evil governments that are trying to keep this
right?
status.
Like the reptilians.
Yeah.
Most of the reptilians are evil. They just are evil. Okay, and they made contracts and deals with different governments for the ability to take species off planet, abduction, experimentation. Um, I'm sorry to say, even food.
Ooh, yeah. You know what? I've heard that from more than one person, and that makes sense. That unfortunately, I could see how past generals and presidents even would exchange technology for things like giving up humans for
Well,
really food.
I think part of the reason, people say, how could we do that? Well, people were given an ultimatum: is you either allow us to do this and work with us, or we're just going to do it without you.
Which
We're
they
just
probably have been doing anyway, right?
Well, but we're going to do it in a destructive manner. And so there was agreements made to keep things private, to keep things quiet, so that, you know, human political factions could function.
Yeah.
And and we've seen that that's true. We've seen that there are situations going on this planet politically that just shouldn't be happening, that aren't reasonable.
Um,
So
Back to Johnny, because there's a few here that I want to be able to get in the next 10 minutes if possible. Not to mention I still have Scott's question lingering. I'm going to
that's
merge
okay.
these two together. What does the ET brothers think about the interaction of Dr. Reed? And then the follow-up says he went there with the artifact. What was their world and interaction with Dr. Reed?
Well, I've used the artifact several times. I won't say exactly how many. I've been given permission to do it. One of the times, okay, I've never said this before, but one of the times is I took my friend Gary, who had been beaten literally to death.
The one that wrote the book?
That is in my original book, my friend Gary. I took him hoping they would help him, hoping they would save him. And the place that I ended up was in this big, it almost looked like a castle. It looked like it had stone or marble floors, and it had big open kind of vestige points where you could view out into what looked like a big, I want to say, you know, like is as if you were looking into a valley, a huge valley, but it wasn't a valley. It was space, and it was full of these bubbles. It was full of these huge, big, all kinds of different millions of bubbles that were moving, that was just undulating. And as my friend laid on the ground and I pleaded with one of the superiors, the entities of light, to help him, to save him, he literally transformed into nothing but a big ball of energy right in front of me and entered that realm, entered that void, and started to float away. And I was sobbing. I didn't know. And they literally said, this is the transformation. This is part of
That's the
the
death,
evolution.
right?
And this is what some people call the well of souls. Okay. And they didn't tell me that. I'm just quoting what other people have, you know, commented about. And literally what this is the being reborn into another realm. This is where we go when we die. We join back. Our soul energy joins back with this collective, and they all share ideas and stories of their lives. And it's like a big convention, you know. And I don't mean to make light of this, because it's one of the most amazing spiritual things I've ever seen, ever witnessed in my life. And it is as real as the air that I am breathing. It was there, it was tangible, it was physical. This was not an illusion, it was not a thing put in my mind. It was a real general place. And what was happening was incredibly beautiful. And I've been there since. I've been back there since. And I've seen my friend Gary. He has come back through this soup of bubbles and remanifested in front of me, just like I always knew him in this life.
Mm-hmm.
And he's told me, this is the process. This is what we need to understand. This is what we need not to be afraid of. We need to embrace the idea that life continues after our physicality ends, is that the emotional state of our soul energy, however you want to call it, continues to go and live and is reborn and resent and relived again and again and again. This is the process.
Nathan Allen asks, have you ever spoken with R. Keith Andrews? I don't know who that
No,
is. Okay, he
no.
said the next thing is please get in touch with R. Keith Andrews. And by the way, when you have a chance and you have the link to this, go back and watch at least the second half of the chat because there's a lot of messages directed at you, like thank you,
Okay.
things
Well, I
that
want
I
to thank
couldn't get
everybody
to.
for their
Yes,
questions. I
'cause
really,
there's
really appreciate it.
yeah, and there's stuff that I couldn't get to, and there's also many of those messages that I just couldn't read because I didn't want to ruin the role.
No,
Um,
it's okay.
the next one, I'm going to go back to that first one I asked you from Scott, who again is going to see this after the live stream and asked me particularly to ask you. And I originally asked you about Freddy, but now it's going to expand to every ET, whether it be the superiors, back to their home planet. Can you tell us what their home
Yes.
planet looks
I,
like? Is it
well, I've
tall? I mean,
I've been I've been to two places. I've been to what looked like an underground facility,
mhm.
and I believe it's underground on Earth. I believe that it's actually in our oceans, and it's a huge base underground, and it's connected to the ocean. The reason I know that is because I saw windows in it. I saw physical windows that looked out into the water. I saw craft that came and into this facility through huge open doors that had no. They were able to keep the water out on the other side of this energy line, and craft that would come in and park and levitate in. Uh, Incredible technology. I mean, so superior to ours. I mean, it's just unworthy. We are not worthy.
Do
Okay.
these beings have color? Is there any art, like pictures hanging around? Or do they not? Are they just so practical they don't even have that part of their brain? Do they use bathrooms? I mean, do they sleep? Do they use beds?
Let me regarding bathrooms. Freddy doesn't seem to produce any waste. If it does, it's absorbed through his suit.
Hmm.
Uh, Never seen anything. I've never seen him eat. The only thing I've seen him do is take water from me. And he does occasionally. I mean, I'll actually put a cup of water out when I think he's coming. I usually know when he's coming a few hours ahead. I feel it. I can feel it. Uh, I don't know how to identify the feeling, but it just happens. Um,
Hmm. And you also mentioned that you smell him, right?
Yes, he has an odor, undeniable odor that I smell ahead of time before he actually physically manifests in front of me. And other people have smelled it also. Back to your question, have I seen facilities on another planet? Yes, one time I saw outside, looking out a window area that I was told I could not go out because the environment was detrimental to my health. So I had to stay in a certain area of this building. But I could see structures, I could see buildings that were extremely tall, geometric, glass, shiny metals, very, very futuristic. If you could
Color at all, or are they just
Sure,
one color?
blues and greens and transparents, and uh, a train that looked like a monorail,
Hmm.
but yet it wasn't touching any
The
kind of
ground.
rail. There
Yeah.
was no rail, but it looked like that. Um, Geometrics, very, very geometrically blocky type of buildings. I was told that this one that was real kind of looked like stacked um, blocks was a residence of workers. So I think they've evolved to the point where they're all working for a common goal. So there isn't just a personal issue. Everybody's part of a collective
Hmm.
or a force. Um, Somebody said, "Oh, well, like Star Trek, they don't have money. They all work for the common good." Yeah, I think so. I think that's how it has to evolve. There has to be a structure where the individual isn't as important as the collective.
I This is one final one. I can probably get in. We're almost at 2 hours.
Keep going.
Yeah, Johnny Webb. Does Dr. Reed know of Billy Myers and the Palladians?
Yes, I do. I know of the story. I know of Michael Horn that has continued to talk of the case. Uh, People say, well, do you believe it? Even though they've proved that some of these pictures are bogus. First of all, they weren't proven that
Hmm.
they were bogus. They were suggested that they were.
You're talking about
Uh,
the ones with the dinosaurs and Mars and stuff, right?
right, right.
Yeah.
And but disinformation is rampant in ufology.
Hmm.
So you got to get beyond that. You got to get your head beyond that kind of stuff and say that some of these people that have been talking about this for years and years and years are telling the truth,
Oh
you know,
yeah, yeah.
and
Not
it's a
all of them are lying,
reality.
that's for sure.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, I guess I'm one of those that's willing to stick my neck out. Um, but I'm trying to read something here. Holly, Holly, I can't read it. I already did. Okay. Um, anyway, they do live in different planets. They do live in different environments. They do have civilizations that have thrived like humans have in development, but so many millions of years ahead of us. I mean, it's hard to even speculate on how much they have going on and how far above we are in technology.
Do you sense anything along the lines of them with a personality, like a fun personality? Do they have any hobbies, or are they, again, one side brained, like, or we are two-sided? Are they just not having
Well,
any sort of fun?
no, no, they have personalities. I mean, even Freddy has an individual personality that's different from his cousins that he brought to me and introduced me to. They're all different. They all have a sense of um, they're dignified, but they're humble. They're very
Mhm,
humble. They're excited that they can interact with me without me screaming and tearing my hair out.
mhm.
Um, I'm kind of an anomaly to them because of that. I learned, and that I've said, I've opened myself up and said I will talk to any of them if they won't hurt me, if they will allow me to, to function. And so they've kept that going. They've shown me a lot of different species, some who can't communicate on my level at all, maybe because they don't want to,
Mhm.
because we are so far down the ladder. But the ones that have communicated with me have been treated me with respect and realize that I can't speak the way they do. I can't think the way they do. I think singularly, singular issues compared to them thinking on multiple levels vastly faster than we are. Um, they've had to dumb down to be able to speak to me the way I speak and the way I contemplate ideas. So I've had to learn to adjust a little bit uh, and think faster so they can understand where I'm at in a complex idea. It's a learning curve. It's a huge learning curve.
Oh,
You
I
know,
would imagine so. Unlike anything ever happened on this planet before, interacting with another human or like an aborigine or something. I just thought of a question that I could ask you that I've wanted to ask any experiencer, and yet it just came to my mind. About 12, maybe longer years ago, I saw a really interesting video on YouTube. It was clearly a contactee or abductee who almost didn't want to tell the story. You could sort of tell he was even wearing a wig. And he was said that the aliens told him that he has to explain the alien number system, how they count. And essentially, what they do is he drew a circle, and and he cut it into 12 pieces of a pie. He said
Hmm.
that is their numerical system. Have you ever heard
Yes,
anything like that with them?
absolutely. That's
Oh, so he's
absolutely true.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Okay,
they
so
and
this is
they
great confirmation.
like I said, they use geometry to explain ideas, and it's very complex. Instead of words, they actually throw different geometric shapes that are connected to each other, and that's almost like creating a conversation. Um, it's like it can be read forward or backward at the same time.
That
Uh,
was another thing with these alien numbers in that tutorial. It's like you could see it and you could
right,
tell right away, no matter what direction you're looking at it.
exactly. And we believe, humans believe, for a long time, we believe that that is probably the way we are going to transition ourselves in communication. Um, we're so archaic. Everything we do is slow, backward, takes too long to think about, compared to smarter ways of communicating. So that's one of the things they wish we could embrace, is making some changes to allow them to communicate with us. It's almost like, as if we went to a country where we didn't speak the language, but yet people are just throwing words at us that we have no idea what it means.
Hmm.
And that's kind of the way they communicate unless they slow themselves down.
I'm
And otherwise it's like a fire hose being projected at your head in your mind. And I
yeah,
mean, it actually
nonstop.
hurts.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would imagine
it
headache.
actually creates a like a migraine headache. So
I I could imagine so with all that flow of information and having your brain trying to stop a piece of it to understand it before the
right,
rest just keeps flooding
right.
into
I
you.
mean, I got to the point where I actually had to say literally, stop, slow down. I can't take this. And they did. He finally started to understand what that meant, what it meant to slow down and to communicate almost singularly with ideas versus throwing out a whole paragraph at a time.
I'm gonna merge two more questions from Johnny
Go for it.
for you. Do you have any implants? And when you talked about the smell, is it sulfuric? I know the answer to that one, but I'm just reading the question.
Right? The smell is of Freddy is like rotten meat or rotten food, like rotten fruit almost, a pungent, uh, acidic smell. It's not nice. It's like you have garbage that needs to go out.
Yeah.
And that smell will manifest in the room before you can see him, like a minute before you see him.
Kind of like a
So you,
warning as opposed to
oh
him just
yeah,
appearing.
you know well, and scientists, human scientists, have said a couple of interesting things. One, if you walk through a huge magnetic field enough times, it actually changes our skin color and it becomes kind of gray, kind of pinkish gray. Isn't that interesting? Because that's the
Yeah, because
color the
that's the
grays
color.
are,
Yep,
right?
yep.
And the other thing is that your skin in a magnetic field kind of can burn a little bit. So there's a possibility that that smell is coming because he's transitioning through dimension to enter my world. So that may be why that smell exists, because he's not dirty. There's nothing dirty about them. They're spotless, in fact. But
What about that blue tint to his skin? That
well,
look.
he changes color. I mean, he was a little bit uh, going through a very negative process when I, you know, practically beat him to death. Uh, our skin would change color too. When we die, we become kind of a grayish color when our blood doesn't circulate. Um, and then he was in and out of the freezer. So there was some organic changes going on with the temperature and with his body chemistry. So that's, he was at one time, he was kind of a bluish gray in the forest. I think that was more of his natural color. When I got him home, he was kind of a brownish gray. And I put him in the freezer. He became kind of a brownish, pinkish gray. And then when he reanimated, he was a grayish beige kind of. I mean, I took perfect photographs that are perfectly clear, and people can go see them. They're free. I've never sold them. Uh, but they're the only photographs that exist today of an actual, clear, sharp, brightly lit extraterrestrial
Live, living
dimension.
too, right?
Right. That's
That's a
alive.
very big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, it's the only ones. So if people say, oh, it's a hoax, it's this or it's that, well, people say, oh, there's no body. Well, I got a video showing the complete body. They say, oh, well, it was a puppet. Well, prove to me that it was a puppet. I didn't have, $25,000 to buy some movie prop, like some people have said. I mean, I was
A
homeless. I was
mechanical one
penniless.
too that makes the eyes open.
Right. But some people tried to say that, I could have gotten a hold of, a puppet to do this. Well, you can speculate anything, you
The
know?
thing that I always say, those debunkers who always think that everything is fake, it doesn't pay, especially today. There is so much real footage out there. Why would anyone need to create anything fake to make money? Because I don't think they'll even make the money back of what they made, of what it cost to make it, let alone becoming rich. This isn't 1954 where you're one of the handful of people who has a camera. So, that's just what boggles my mind when everyone just jumps the gun. No, this is
Well,
story. This is a lie.
yeah, the
It's
other
a pop.
people, one of the other things that a lot of people say, and I think we should talk about it, is people say, how have he survived? How has he survived for 28 years? And I say, well, by the grace of God and a lot of help from a lot of people who have helped me. I've never asked for any money other than, selling, uh, selling my book, which I've sold a great deal of, but I've never taken donations. I've never made tours to the site. Um, in fact, I've been given money that I've refused to take. Somebody offered me $10,000 when I first came out, and I refused to take that. Um, now I have been helped. People have helped me. They have helped by sheltering me, by giving me food, by giving me an ability to live and not live under a bridge all the time. For a long time, I was homeless. I was penniless. And if it wasn't for the team that I have of mercenaries who have continued to be with me and support me, I wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for Robert, who helped me originally, who co-wrote the book with me, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have survived it. Uh, and that's gone on and on and on. There's 14 people that are now dead because of me. And I carry that on my shoulder every day, every hour of my
The
life.
worst kind of
And if it
thing to
wasn't
think of.
for them, I wouldn't be here. Now, you can say whatever you want. People can say, oh, he's a liar. He made all this up, whatever. Well, death certificates are real. Uh, Information that's out there about some of these people are real. Not all of them died of natural causes, believe me. They were killed. These people were actually killed trying to get to me, trying to get to the device one way or another. And I had to fight fire with fire. I had to change my attitude. I had to become a person that I don't like. I had to surround myself with people who knew how to defend me and learn how to defend myself in ways where I'm not proud, but I've survived. And I was smart enough before any of this happened uh, to learn how to survive and manage money in a different way. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here today. I mean, this place is not my house. This is a place that I have the ability to come and sit and talk to you but it's not where I live. I've been nomadic for 28 years. I don't have a home. I don't have an income. I don't have, I have a social security situation that
Yeah, because they won't
says,
pay it if you don't have a number, right?
well, no, I got a number, but what's interesting is it says that for 20 years I didn't make any money. I never had a job. 20 years. All the time that I worked in medicine, it says that I never paid anything into Social Security. So I don't have any Social Security. It's empty. Okay. So how could that happen? How could I survive? How could I have had multiple properties, multiple sports cars, lived a great life like I did for years and years, working as a medical physician in a big facility, which I can prove I did. It's already been proved that I did work there. Okay. How could I do that and not pay Social Security? So they wiped out my Social Security so that again I didn't have anything to live on. So they've
They
tried
want
to
you a homeless, literally like one of those addicts that you see talking to themselves in front of Skid Row or now
well,
anywhere in LA.
luckily I've got other people to talk to, and again I've had so much support and help from friends all over the world who know this is the truth, who know
Hmm.
me, who knew me before this went on, and understand that the facts of the case are real. It's
Hmm.
legitimate. It's not a made up thing. No matter how much somebody tells you that, no matter what they try to make up on the web, talk to the source. I'm the
Yeah.
source. Talk to Dr. J. He knows the evidence. He's seen it,
Yes,
you
I
know,
had.
and
I
he
spent.
studied the case almost more than anybody.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is not just embrace my ideas, but embrace other people who have had contact and realize they are disclosure.
Yes.
Okay, that is what disclosure is. It isn't waiting for the government to say, oh, guess what, this is, ET. We are disclosure. I've been disclosing this since 1998 when I first went public, and everybody that I've tried to go with, has embraced. Once they knew the story, once they knew the facts and the evidence and saw it, they embraced it too. And literally one by one, those people have died. Those people were eliminated. The very first person that I came out and talked to was Art Bell, who was willing to go on the record to do some other things with me, and he died. He died miraculously, mysteriously. No matter what anybody tells you, I knew the man. I knew him as a friend who had become a friend of
I
mine.
spoke to him hours before he died. He was completely fine. I'm not
He
kidding.
was.
There was no sadness in his voice, nothing imminent, no goodbye. It was nice talking to you. It was just a casual
And
conversation.
this was long before COVID.
Hours.
So
Oh, of course, it was 2018. So yeah. But anyhow, we are caught up literally for the most part. Some other questions have come up. Some are repeats. Come on
excuse
late.
me.
Um, others,
Sorry.
we did go into the Pope and stuff. Okay, here's um. Oh, you know what? Since you mentioned the name, um,
Go
might as well
ahead.
respond to this. Secret Spaceship asks, "What does Doctor Greer have to say about your story?"
Um, he's afraid of me. Actually, I've confronted him twice, and he ran away from me. I mean, literally ran from me and my team. I've talked to him on email. I've talked to him through other people, and he originally said, "Well, uh, this doesn't promote my case." In other words, he's got an agenda,
Mhm.
and it doesn't coincide, doesn't work with his agenda. He originally said, well, you've got no credentials, so I can't believe you. Well, you're right. I don't have any credentials because they were wiped out, because they were erased. Okay. Show me how you can do that. Just show me how some normal guy can erase everything from his passport to social security information to bank accounts to scholastic uh, graduation, accreditation, uh, everything, including, my employment. How do you wipe that out within a matter of a day or two? Well, the only people that have the ability to do that would be a government facility or above that. And I believe it's above that. I believe that the government works with other entities that are negative and they can go and basically wipe anybody out
Mhm.
on paper. And that's what they did. And that's proof itself. That's even more evidence. Think about that. Stop and think
Well,
about the
again,
fact.
every
Yeah,
time we talk about this, it reminds me because Bob Lazar was the first person I know to have everything wiped from him. You are the only other person I know to have everything wiped from them, except the only difference is you have a ton of actual physical proof. So I know it can be done. And the types of people that have to be able to do this are people that have access to everything. Social Security
right,
office,
right.
run the
And
FBI, run the
and
CIA,
and,
run the military.
and nowadays with 99% of everything computerized, it's very simple. I mean,
Oh, I would
I,
think
I
so.
have I have some people on my team who are, you know, literal hackers, and they said, we can, with the right tools, with the right computer, you can create and destroy anybody's life, and that's essentially what they've done to me. Um, but guess what? I'm still here. I'm still talking to people like Dr. J.
Yep.
He's talking to all those people out there. So I exist. This is how I exist. Um, I'm really not selling my book. There's a book out there that people can buy about how this all began. And, it's so cheap that it's barely, you know, it's just an I think it's $10.
Mhm.
Um, but, if you want to
And the
read,
links in the description for everyone.
yeah, I mean, it's all there. I mean, there's even things that I described, like the suit, like Freddy's suit. I initially cut it with an X-Acto knife, made a 6-inch slit in his toward his chest, and the suit immediately sealed itself
Like the
like a
memory
zipper.
medal from Roswell that Jesse
Right.
Marcel and his son Jesse Marcel
And
Jr. explained
then I
about.
cut it again and it sealed itself again. And on the third time I cut it and it wouldn't let the X-Acto knife, it wouldn't allow me to cut it.
Like it remembered, literally, it remembered that you
Right.
tried it and it said,
Right.
okay,
Now
we're not going to let it
remember,
cut this time.
remember, this was in 1996. Then I wrote about it. The book came out, wrote about it in the book. We'll just use the 2000 as the year the book came out.
Hmm.
Wrote about it. Well, in 2009, I think, I could be wrong on that date, but NASA said, guess what? We've discovered a new material that's self healing that we're going to make spacesuits out of. Okay.
Literally,
So,
after 6 years, what, 5, 6 years after you encountered this, right?
well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
almost 8 years that I knew about it. So, I mean, people say, well, you found out about it and you wrote about it in your book.
No,
Well,
because you wrote it 8 years before,
that's
or you,
right.
or you.
And there's a lot of things like that. I mean, there's a lot of things that I knew about ahead of time.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I projected some ideas that I didn't know about. I didn't know what it meant. Um, I didn't realize what I saw, what I was shown when I was shown the Twin Towers falling down, these geometric shapes falling to the ground.
So
I
you
mean,
you saw 9/11 as it happened
I saw that in
before it happened.
1996.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 96. I've seen other events like that that were uh, geology events in regard to um, some disasters, some natural disasters, floods, like hurricanes, like Katrina.
Mm.
Uh, I have been shown these things, and I ask the question, why? Why are you showing me this? What does this mean? And I think they're trying to say, uh, help us survive these events. They can't change them, but they're helping us to prepare to survive these kinds of events. And that's what I believe. They are
There,
trying to educate us.
I think one of the things I wanted to leave off to ask you on is to talk about a couple weeks ago. Your security members sent me. It was something I think you wrote actually. It was I don't want to say it was a cryptic message because it wasn't cryptic, but it was an interesting message that was along the lines of that a year from now, or just actually, I think it's less than a year, right? When that time comes, that God, let me see if I could pull it up and just read it for everyone to hear. That would probably
Okay.
make it easier. I can get it real quick right here, and that way people will know what I'm talking about. So it's not just,
You keep disappearing.
oh, yeah, sorry. It's technology is not as good today as I would like it to. Okay, everyone, bear with me. I'm just going back to find this exact. It was something. Okay, here it is. Ready?
Yep.
10/15/2022. Within 2 solar years, so 2, not 1, Earth and all of its inhabitants will be subjected to catastrophic events without intervention, could represent total extinction. If we join together with an advanced extra-dimensional life form, we will survive. Earth's governments are in denial of this. We have one opportunity to join forces and give our respect, faith, and trust to a higher power. It is Earth's and mankind's only hope. Only through focused, directed consciousness can this be achieved. I need your help. Um, Tell us about that. I know you wrote it, or was it something that was told to you to write? And
No,
especially
I
that,
wrote it.
okay, especially that first paragraph about we have 2 solar years, technically now less.
There's a storm, a solar storm that's going to happen, created by our sun.
Mhm.
There's part of our sun is probably going to break off, and it's going to create a huge, like if you imagine a windstorm, but radiation being shot against all of the planets. There's a way that the higher beings know to deflect it, similar to what I explained about the asteroid uh,
Mhm.
thing. But this
The
is
pyramid
this
that
is
deflected.
right. But this is got to be done with consciousness. You have to start thinking that our consciousness is a tool. It's like a shield, and
Mhm.
it can be used to protect physical Earth, the physical side of Earth. And we need to learn to do that because this event is an absolute, it's going to happen. If I've deciphered what they've told me correctly, uh, 2 solar years is probably about the time it's going to happen. Um, there's a possibility that we won't be told about it because of government's idiocy.
Well, I tend to agree with you. I don't think they're going to tell us. I think you're telling us right now, and I think more contactees, abductees, experiencers are saying bits and pieces. I haven't heard that before. I mean, in the past, I've heard it, not with regards to 2 years, but I know so many other experiencers have told me, either on this show or privately, that they're constantly bombarded with images of crazy storms, no power,
Right,
no food, everything that would happen as a result of
right.
EMPs and
Well,
radiation affecting
part
us.
of this climate change is cyclical, like we talked about earlier.
Correct.
We just have to get beyond the politics of it and understand the science of it, and realize that consciousness is an umbrella. You can make it into an umbrella,
Yeah.
and it's the power of our mind can change and move mountains. And that's what they're telling us. They're telling us we can do this. I can manifest by what they've told me, by what they've shown me and educated me. I can prove that my consciousness can move physical situations. Okay. I'm not Uri Geller. I'm not going to go on television and start moving spoons around, but I know that it's true. It's true as the science side of it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, light is energy, energy is frequency, frequency is power. And we can use all of those things, and consciousness is the focusing element to all of those things. So we just have to learn to focus our creative power as a group. I mean, if we could, for instance, when we have a huge tragedy in the world, our energies are focused more unified. They're more put together in a way that causes huge energy in the off the planet. It causes ripples through the universe, and that's coming directly from us,
Mm-hmm.
from our consciousness. Okay, we need to understand that power. We need to be able to focus it and use it. That's what they're saying. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I hope by what I found out, I hope it's wrong. But if I'm right, we need to work on this. And they're telling us that. They're telling us that we can prevent some huge natural disasters just by using our mind correctly.
I believe that because of the Maharishi effect. If you recall that study where they meditated to decrease crime in DC, 7,000 people, it dropped like 40%. I believe that we all can collectively meditate for that same thing and affect actual change in the
Oh,
physical
absolutely,
world.
absolutely. That's absolutely true. Our consciousness is a huge tool, and it's untapped because we just don't spend enough time working on it. If we spent the same amount of time working on how our consciousness works that we do with language from when we're children
Mhm.
until we're adults, imagine what we could do.
Oh, it's endless. I don't think there are even words made up or
Well, I
around
mean,
for what we can
there.
do.
Well, there's proof throughout society that people can focus consciousness in a way that actually can physically move their bodies off of the ground.
Yeah,
And I'm not
levitate.
talking
Yeah.
about people on stands that are, clothed and making money. I'm talking about real serious meditation, like the monks in Tibet.
Tibet. Yeah.
And we also have history that says the power of the mind has been able to level wars, has been able to change structures. Um, and it's even in the Bible that talks about it. And why we don't believe it, it's like we're too smart to let this natural thing come into our life. And we have to humble ourselves a little bit and listen to what they're telling us.
Yeah.
So
Um,
I think we can do it. I think we can prevent a total extinction, but I think we need to work together to do it more so. And
I'm gonna.
that's
I wasn't gonna take any more, but this is relevant to something I said to you about someone questioning this. So I think publicly, let me just ask,
do it,
say
do
this
it.
and respond to it publicly. Jay Moore says, "What on earth are you doing giving this guy airtime? Does no one research anymore, Dr. J?" I appreciate you saying that, Jay, but literally, I have researched this case. I've known about it literally since it happened. I've really thought I knew it all, but I realized I knew just a fraction of it. Over the last several months, I have
Over the
watched.
last year,
Yeah, no, I'm saying since I've started talking to you,
right,
I
right.
really understood there's so much more to this case. I read letters, articles, watched everything, heard everything, went through photographs, went through videos. This case, to me, all the evidence is there. There is not one piece of evidence that can be refuted. Not one. Not the polygraphs, not the DNA, not the metallurgy, not his bullet wounds. I've seen pictures that are so graphic I can't show you. This man has been shot in the head. His
Three
car was
times.
flipped over. There is every piece of evidence. That's why I am standing behind this case. I mean, there's too little to say that it didn't exist. Now, I'd love to see if you have any evidence, Jay, but unfortunately, I guarantee you, whatever your sources are, there is no evidence. That's the problem. If you just pick some random websites, you're going to get bullshit. That's the problem with trying to dig through his stuff without actually looking at the evidence and looking at the pundits. So that is how I would answer this question.
And as a lawyer, you know, to build a case against somebody like me, you have to create circumstances that destroy the credibility
Well, you would
of.
have to get every single piece of evidence and then destroy it. So for your polygraph, you would have to prove that the polygraph was flawed, or that you were able to trick it, or
And I
that.
took two of them
Correct. So do you see
at
how
two
every
different times
single
in
piece?
two
Okay.
different places.
What about Kodak? Kodak writing you a letter. People say, "Oh, it's a fake letter." Oh, yeah, but what happens when you call up Kodak and they say, "Yeah, we sent this letter, and these are real videos and pictures"?
And
All
the
of that
letter
has to
wasn't,
be destroyed.
and the letter wasn't sent to me. It was
Sent
Art
to Art
Bell.
Bell. That's right. So that's why, Jay, I stand by this case. I get that you guys haven't, but I can't even tell you how many hours just in the last several months I've spent absorbing more that I didn't think I knew, let alone what I did understand for 2.5 decades.
And there's going to be other things that are going to be brought out, you know, within the next few months that again people will refute, people will try to, you know, explain away, but again it's just more evidence. It's just more evidence that the case happened, that it
Yeah.
really happened, that I am a real person, that I really worked where I said I did, and that my life was destroyed.
Uh,
If you don't want to believe anything about the
then,
ET and you only look at the fact they destroyed my life, that's amazing in itself.
yeah.
I mean,
Another thing, too, is that most people don't realize you speaking about anything that is considered evidence. Someone being a witness on their stand without any physical evidence. Okay, if 100 years ago, because there's cameras everywhere now and juries want a little more than just a story, if I'm the sole person who watched you go into a gas station and shoot the clerk, you will be hung the next day, because my witness testimony, assuming it could stand up in cross-examination and not fall apart, is considered witness testimony, is considered evidence in a court of law. So everything else that you have that adds to it just bolsters the initial claim. That's why cases like Bob Lazar will stand up in court, because all he needs is really what he's saying, and to not fall apart, not prove that his alibi that when he worked there was actually in another state or things like that. That's why that. So I just wanted to get that out there, because a lot of people say, well, someone's testimony isn't evidence. Yeah, it is. No matter what state you're in, use the federal courts. It is absolutely established evidence going back to precedents from 2,000 years ago or 1,500 years ago.
and Dr. J, you know, one other thing, I mean, when we first started talking, you asked me straight out, you said, well, can I cross-examine you? Can I ask you these questions, you know? And you asked some really tough questions, but I answered you.
You did
And I
every
gave
single
you
thing.
and I gave you where to go to find the proof and who to see. See, a lot of this I didn't prove. I had other people do it.
Mm-hmm.
I had other researchers actually walk the walk, go to the universities that I graduated from, talk to professors that were retired because it was years later, but who remembered me, who gave their testimony, who gave it on video and physical testimony of who I was and what I had done and how they knew me.
Yeah.
Um, and and people from my university medical center that I worked with that were told initially they couldn't talk about me. They couldn't tell anybody that I worked there. Otherwise, they'd lose their job and they might lose their life. I mean,
Yeah.
people were openly threatened. Okay, well, since then, I've gotten back and had testimony by some of those people who I worked with, who worked with me every day, who saw me every day going to work, who knew me as a physician. You know, developmental psychiatrics, child development is what my field was. And they knew me as a functioning medical physician. Okay. I can't make that up. I mean,
No.
if I was going to lie about something, why would I lie about a career that is such that takes such an education to produce, uh, where would I come up with all that knowledge?
Correct. And not just that, every single person that's validated your story, people have to stop and question if this was not the truth. Do people really want to be in that position where they're going to be a part of something that didn't happen? People don't work like that. People need to understand the majority of people on this planet are not sinister. They're actually good people telling the truth. There are those few bad apples, but to believe that a story of this caliber with so many people involved, every element's a lie is that person has got to be so tone deaf, so disconnected from reality. If nothing is true to them, if this case is true to them, then nothing ever is going to be true to them. And those
Dr.
people,
Dr.
unfortunately, you
J,
just got to get by them.
a lot of people don't realize that I was put through some really serious grilling. When I allowed some of these people, Wendell Stevens, to research my case, he wanted to research things that weren't specific to the extraterrestrial. He wanted to research things that were pertaining to my education and my knowledge of the medical field. So he created a board of examiners and put me in front of four medical doctors who grilled me for 4 hours and told me that there was no way I could have studied for their examination, that absolutely I had to have been in the medical field like I said I was. And one of them just even said, well, if this guy wasn't a doctor, I wish he was working
Yeah,
with
I was
me
just
in my
gonna say
hospital.
that would be like you taking the MCATs with nothing before, or
Well,
like you
that's
just
right. That's
so
right.
yeah,
I mean, you
yeah,
can't pull this stuff just out of your pocket if
yeah,
you haven't studied it.
yeah, yeah.
And do you think that I went and crammed for a year to do this? No, this came up out of the blue. Wendell said, "Hey, I want you to go down and talk to so and so, meet my friends at this uh, one facility. It was at a hospital. I had no idea what they were going to do."
Hmm.
And I walked in and they put a chair down in front of these guys and said, "Sit down, we want to talk to you." And they grilled me. They really, it was like the worst employment opportunity I've ever could imagine, because they really, really took me apart to find out if I really knew anything about medicine, about psychology, about psychiatrics, which are different,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
how
psychology doesn't involve medication, right?
right. Well, usually not. Um, but they also had a psychiatrist there, a man who was in my field, and he spent a long time asking me a lot of questions that I had to answer that weren't yes or no. They were, give me the background of this field. Tell me what this means. What would you do in this scenario with this type of a situation with a patient? Explain to me the details. And if I wouldn't have known what to do, I couldn't have answered those questions. And all of them said, absolutely, once they were done, this guy has spent a long time in medicine.
Yeah, clearly. Like I said, it's
So,
something though. Like I'm glad each time we talk, you bring something more up, and sometimes it's not just for me; it's for everybody else because
well,
you
it's
know you
like I
can't
said,
you can't add all this stuff up and if I wanted to come up with a movie or a story, you can't dream something of this magnitude because the wheels would fall off. You have so many cogs in a wheel of a story. It's either true or it's untrue. But if it's untrue, you don't think one of those wheels would have fallen off the moment it was put together, or a year later, all of them fall off. That's what just boggles my mind. Okay, let me get to this last one because we are pushing 3 hours and I have to use the facility soon. So, Johnny
keep
wants,
going. Just keep going.
what advice has the ET given you about your situation with the public and B life, I guess, and life?
Well, part of this process, I keep asking the question, why me? I keep saying, look, I can't be the best representative of mankind. I just am not knowledgeable enough. I don't have the background for the politics that I believe it takes. And they say, yes, you do. You have the sincerity that is necessary to tell people that there is a transition that needs to happen, that mankind needs to evolve. And if we don't, we won't be able to transcend. We won't be able to take the next step, and they won't be able to interact with us other than the way they do now, which is infrequent and doesn't give us enough to really move ourselves ahead. I'm trying my best to tell people what we need to understand. We need to understand that this is not just about physicality. It's not just about lights in the sky or ETs or extraterrestrial or extra dimensional. It's about the evolution of our being, of our soul matter. It's about the transition of that from one state to another. It's a miraculous thing. We have to embrace that. That is, it's a fact. It's a scientific evolution that we have to go through. We have to transition.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't, we will never be able to step up to that galactic table. And they want us to. They want us to make that transition. And they're saying, then welcome us into your life.
Mm-hmm.
Open yourselves up to us. Let us become part of you. Okay, a lot of people are afraid of that. They think they want to take over our lives. They could take over our lives anytime they want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, these beings could absorb us in the blink of an eye, and you know, if they wanted to, we could all be in cages somewhere,
Oh,
waiting
we
to be
would have
food.
been dead
Right,
long before we went to even
but they
Neanderthal.
see us. They see us as potential because we're part of them. They're looking back from a million years in the future saying, they're saying, we want these humans to survive.
Mm-hmm.
We need their race to survive because they are part of us. And it's hard to get your mind around to realize we are actually part of them. They are our descendants. We need to embrace this. We need to let them become part of us.
Mm-hmm.
Let them We have to let them into our physical, emotional, spiritual being. And then when that happens, then we are lifted, we are transcended. It's like using the link artifact. It changes my body. It actually physically changes my energy of my body. And then it moves through time and space. And I mean time also, because I've seen things that maybe I shouldn't have seen, that are changes that will happen, that
Yeah.
we can't uh, we can't steer around it. We have to steer through it, but we can be smart and survive. And they're ways they're trying to educate us to be able to do that. And I
Look at it, but it's like, at what point
right,
even go into a 7-Eleven if you wanted to? Grocery. Okay, what I just did is I actually just fast forwarded past that little segment. As you could see, it was only 3 minutes long. If you want to see what he actually said, which got me in so much trouble, which is kind of BS, I'm going to post the unedited version on my Rumble channel, which is the same. So without further ado, let's finish this amazing interview. Shopping.
right. Well, fortunately, I had some people who worked in hospitals who provided my team with the same thing. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
right. Good
you
to have
do what you
connections.
have to do to survive.
Yeah, I was not
And
going to
it,
be locked at home, not be able to live life, and I was not going to get it because those who've gotten it, I know women very young, some just got married. They can't get pregnant anymore. Little
well,
details like that from so
I've
many.
had I've had COVID twice. Okay,
Yeah,
and
me too.
when I I had it, 2 years ago almost. And when it first, was happening, I got it really bad, really congested, serious cough. And, I think it's debilitating. I think it sticks with you. I still think I have some of the residual of it, but your own immune system can fight it. It's amazing what our systems are designed to do. We
Yeah.
are incredible machines.
Yeah.
If we would honor our bodies more and take care of them more, they would serve us better. And I have learned that the hard way. Uh, you know, I have survived uh, famine and homelessness and terrible tragedy, and and I wish in a lot of ways, I wish I could have given my life for all those who have given their lives for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they are the warriors, they are the heroes of this, not me. The people who have helped me, who have helped this message to continue. You, Dr. J, are a
Thank you.
warrior,
Thank you.
and we need more of those. And
Yeah, and
I
I'm
and
hoping one thing I told you or tell your team about, I constantly reaching out to people and showing them what I have, what I've done with you, what you guys have sent me. And like, it just sort of makes me sad sometimes when these people can do something and they just don't want to. They don't say
well,
they don't want to. They tell me passively they will look at it, but it's like at what point, and I'm doing it, and I'm not
well,
going to stop either.
okay. The unfortunate side, and this is something that your audience doesn't know, is that when more people get involved with me, in my case, they get attacked.
Yeah.
Like you, Dr.
Yeah.
J, you were attacked from the dark web,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. I
we had
remember
to,
when you warned me about that
yeah,
before I actually saw the effects
right.
myself.
And we had to fight that. I mean, like I said, I've got really intelligent computer people who know how to deal with that. If it wasn't for that, I mean, I can't have a website. I don't have a website because they keep tearing it down. They keep hacking it and tearing it down, the government. So that's why I don't have a website. I've had three of them. And soon as they're up, they get torn apart. They
Or
get
what could
attacked.
what'd be worse than having it tore up if your own website was rewritten to be something they wanted to and not what you
Well,
wrote.
essentially, they've done that. They wrote a biography about me that's a total lie, everything in it. They even hired actors to go to a conference to represent my old girlfriend and her daughter. And those people later came to me and apologized and went on tape and proved that their testimony, that they were hired to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the people who hired them are the same people that run these negative websites, which is bullshit. And as much as they can say it's a lie, I can say it's bullshit.
Yeah, that's
That
right.
those sites are a lie. So it's equal. I mean, I can tell you that airplanes can't fly. It's an illusion. It's just a trick of the mind. But that doesn't mean it's real. It just means I'm trying to tell you that it's a trick of the mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you got to somewhere along the line, people have to say, wait a minute, this guy has so much. This case is so complex. There are so many people involved. He could have never hired all these people, to come forward to write
And if you did,
testimony.
how can you get so many if you did hire them, right? How can you get so many of them to lie and keep the story straight? It's impossible. Humans can't
Well,
lie that long in such a big group about so many things.
and I certainly don't have the money to pay all these actors. Like people have said, oh, they're all actors.
Yeah.
Well, what I say to that is, I guess we were really good actors, but the show wasn't good enough because now they're killing the actors, you
Yeah,
know.
all of
And what I've told you, Dr. J, is the problem is one of these days I'm not going to be here. The source of all this isn't going to be here. And then people will go, oh, do you remember that guy, that Reed case? It was true. It was really true. We had him and all that information but somebody killed him. And then they'll come forward and they'll say that case was important. We should have
We
recognized
should have,
that.
could have, should have, would have before, and yeah,
Right,
that's why it's so
right.
important to do something now.
And I know, you know, I know my time is limited. I know
Hmm.
that I'm very frail in a lot of ways, health wise. And a year ago, not even a year ago, I mean, I died. I had to be resuscitated twice, and I'm not making that up. That's documented that it
Yeah,
actually happened. So I say to you today, I'm here. Talk to me now before I'm dead. I'll give
yeah,
you whatever I have. I'll give you the evidence.
and you have. I
I tried
appreciate
to
that.
tell Greer that I want at the beginning. This was back in 1999 when I first met Dr. Greer. I said, "I'll give you my evidence. I'll give it to you. You can present it." And oh no, no, I can't. I
Didn't
can't
want
talk to
any of
you
it.
because you don't have a birth certificate. You don't have credentials, so I can't talk to you. Okay,
So close-minded.
you know and I'm not saying that the guy is all bad because he has brought forward a lot of good information from a lot of serious observers,
Yeah.
and I salute him for that, but the rest of it is bullshit you know
Yeah, a lot changed after the disclosure project to now, but I will leave my comments private. Well, we actually were able to catch up, thankfully. None have been written. The last one was Holly chatting with everyone else. So let's leave on a positive note.
well, the positive thing is I'm still here and you're still
Yes,
here and your
yes,
audience is still here, and if 1% of your audience starts thinking about the fact that there are cases out there that are real, that have tangible evidence, and that people can come forward and actually talk about their experiences in forums, then we've made progress. Okay. And I say in the United States, I've been pretty much blacklisted from talking at conferences
hmm,
because the people that talk at conferences all have their own spotlight. They all get a little money out of it, and they're afraid of this case because it has so much evidence.
yeah.
But I'm not stepping on anybody else's toes, okay? All I want to do is tell you what I know and show
And tell
you
you
what
what you
I've
know,
seen
and tell you what happened to you, which is what you know.
and
Your thing.
what's ongoing. I mean,
Yeah.
this is not just about 1996. That's when it first started,
Oh,
but
I know you still
it
have stuff happen daily. Like right now, you have things in
right.
your room.
That's right. They're here, okay? And sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it's something that I can't deny. I can't tell you that it's not going on when it is. It's physically here and other people know it. It's not just this one man creating some kind of illusion. It's not. It's a reality. And if we don't focus on the reality and bring them into our life, we're going to lose. And I don't want to lose. I want everybody to make that transition because there's better things than this dimension. There are a lot better things. If we can transition to the next step, all of us as a group, then I think we got it made. And
Agreed.
and people need to know this world that we live in, this three-dimensional world, is not uh, nirvana. It's not what we assume it is. It's a learning point. It's a curve that we have to learn from and take what we learn to the next point. And the evolution will continue. Okay. But they want us to evolve big time. They want us to transition to their world, to their ability to to deal with things that have to do with um, what shall we say, third generation evolution of life, where some of them are almost like gods
Yeah.
because of what they control. God with a little g. not
Of course, there's
God
only
like
one
God.
capital God. Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing people don't know. In talking with them, they all say they all believe in one
Creator.
creator
Yeah.
for all universes. One creator for all universes. Think about that. These beings are like gods themselves, but yet they admit there is only one creator for all life and that all life should be honored and protected because
Yeah.
it's all important, no matter how small it is or how big it is. It's all extremely important because of the energy,
Uh,
and that doesn't mean we're all walking batteries. What it means is that our soul energy that's inside of our bodies is what's important. We're just carrying it around, for 80 years, and then it goes back to a collective.
to
But
home.
but we need to honor it. We need to be respectful to this life and each other in a
Yeah.
different way than we've ever done before. We need to quit fighting amongst ourselves. And I don't I even within ufology groups, we need to quit. We need to open it up and let everybody speak and quit saying, oh, that's not true.
Yeah.
Give
I
people
know
the
there's so much of
opportunity
that.
to tell their story and don't judge it. Don't criticize it. Just learn from it. That's what it's all about. It's a learning situation. And if we don't take this opportunity, we're really missing the boat. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I am probably one of the most jaded people there is because I see all the people who are closed minded. I
I
see the
know.
people
I've
who aren't
crossed them for
willing.
quite some time
Yeah, I mean,
too.
even you and your audience, there's always going to be people who are closed minded, and that's okay. That's all right. Like I always say, if I didn't see it myself, hey, I probably wouldn't believe it either. But I can't deny what has happened in 28 years.
Well, with that
So
being said, Secret Spaceship says it best. Thanks again, Dr. Reed and Dr. J. Cheers, gang.
thank
Everyone,
you so
leave
much.
me a thumbs up and a comment. If you can't think of a comment or a question for Dr. Reed for next time, just leave me a let's go, Brandon. That'll do. And also share this video. And Dr. Reed, the link to your book is in the description. Um,
Okay.
Anything else that you want to tell people where to find you?
I
Anything
want
for
to, well, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to Dr. J. Thank you to the audience. And, God bless us all. And let's start working together. Let's start
yes.
working together. Because I'm willing to talk and meet with people all the time. Those people that say I run away and hide isn't true. And you
Yes,
know that, Dr. J. You
I do.
know. But
Well,
there are
with
things that are going to happen that are going to be miraculous. So
agreed. Everyone hang tight for that. And like Dr. Reed said, make sure that we literally spend time to figure out so we don't end in 2 years. Expand our consciousness and
right,
ask for
right,
them.
right. And Holly says, let's go, Brandon.
Thank you, Holly.
He's
Thank you, Holly.
representing.
Good, good, good. Well, with that being said, I'm going to end our live stream. Thank you all for coming to this momentous time.
Thank you all.
Okay, awesome. So you don't have to have a second part of this video that I originally intended. It's all into one. Like I said, if you want to see the unedited version where I didn't have to clip out the 3 minutes, just go to my Rumble channel. It is exactly the same spelling, DRJ Radio Live. Oh, and I appreciate her saying, let's go, Brandon. The best part, we don't have to worry about Brandon anymore. So maybe we have some brighter times inside. Remember, folks, President Trump said he will release the JFK files. He will release the Epstein client list. And he did say everything he knows and everything he can get his hands on with UFOs and UAPs, he will release. So we can only hope for the best. Again, I really hope you enjoyed this monumental interview of arguably the most important case. I don't stand by too many cases. However, I could honestly say this case is 100% real. The more you try to poke holes in it, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to. I really hope you paid attention to how many pieces of evidence there were. From Kodak, looking at the negatives and looking at the film and saying that nothing was tampered with to the DNA evidence of the blood and skin samples of that alien that confirmed it is nothing based on this earth. There's just so many things. Again, you probably heard it in the interview. I have a lot going on, and I do want to bring him back live, so I will work on that as soon as I can. But in the meantime, I really hope you enjoyed this. Also, you can see, you could check me out on Minds. That probably the only social media I'm allowed on. I haven't been restored on Twitter yet, which makes no sense. And Instagram still kicked me off, but I was able to create a few years ago a secondary one that nobody has. I don't have any followers there. But if you wanted to check me out on Instagram and you guys actually care, then maybe I'll start posting there. That account is the same, Dr. J Radio Live with a number 2, because they banned the original Dr. J Radio Live. So maybe I'll put that in the description as well. And I'll also leave the links to Rumble and everything else. With that being said, folks, keep your eyes in the sky. And I'm hoping you really enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed doing this interview. I'll catch you all on the other side of the moon.